Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting for the Township of Portsmouth, August 26, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order. I'll start with a roll call. Councillor Bailey.
Here.
Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Councillor Goya.
Present.
Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
This begins our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. Brotherson, you have confirmation of the agenda, please.
Council approves the August 26, 2026 agenda and addendum as circulated, and that council defer the presentation by Karen Medeiros regarding the Wellington County OPP Detachment Board 2025 annual report to a future council meeting. And that council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.6. Council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff regarding the August 26, 2026 council agenda.
Can I get a move for that, please? Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hurst. Any questions or comments? All in favor? So for anyone attending in the audience, we had the inspector of the Wellington County OPP that was going to attend today to discuss their 2025 annual report. As you can tell, with a busy agenda, they had a second booking in Fergus, I believe, at 12:30. Any concerns that we wouldn't really be able to give it a just cause short on time, so we've asked to defer that until next meeting, and then with the delegations from Calabash Road, maybe that will tie in a little better. So if you're here for that report, it'll be coming back at our next meeting. All right, so I believe we're going to start. Oh, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Ms. Brotherson, there was closed minutes from a meeting that I just disclosed earlier. Do I need to disclose? I know you don't tell me what I need to disclose, but is there an item number?
It's 14.
This for all. I'll invite Dr. Manu down to the table first, please.
14.42.
So I'll declare pecuniary interest on 14.42. And the general nature of that is that I own property adjacent to the development. I believe it's just the minutes from the previous meeting.
Good morning, Mayor Bailey.
Good morning.
Council. Thank you for giving this opportunity. I'm here on behalf of Morrison Medical Center and about 4,000 patients. I'm here to request a letter of support from the council and the township to improve access to diagnostic imaging. As you probably well know, we don't have any in our township. As a physician, I know how difficult it is for me to get an ultrasound for patients, especially when it's urgent. I or my staff sometimes spend over an hour trying to get an ultrasound for same day for something that's urgent. When we do, most of those patients have to travel up to Erin, usually mostly. The most common answer I get when I call the general is send them to the hospital and we'll see them when we get to them, which I think is an inappropriate use of ER just to get an ultrasound to rule out a DVT, blood clot, or someone has kidney stones. We've had patients walk in that are pregnant with spotting and we can provide them a Doppler. It'd be nice to have an ultrasound machine so we don't have to send them to the hospital. Just so you're aware, most patients might know this. If anyone walks into the ER just to walk through the door, it costs the system just about $1,000 just to walk in the door. So it's not really efficient use of our taxpayer dollars. We've been approached by an imaging company that would like to bring an ultrasound machine to our township. We have the space, we have the need, and we're hoping to get your support so that the Minister of Health would also see the need of the community. As you probably know, we have an older population in our township as compared to the provincial average. Our wait times also for a non-urgent ultrasound is higher than the provincial average as well. To me, it made sense that not only does this save money, but improves access to services and helps the elderly folks that don't drive as often. They have to rely on their loved ones or family members to get around. They don't have to travel as far to get something that is basic necessity for us to do our job. Great. Happy to answer any questions you may have. I didn't get this quite in time. I got an email from our MVP just 12:15 yesterday, so after the cutoff time for the addendum. And he did provide a letter of support for getting diagnostic images. And I have the letter. If you'd like to see it, I'm happy to share it with you. Don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but it's yours.
You can leave it with us.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And then just later, a few hours later, I also got an email from our MP's office saying that now that the MPP is on board supporting us, the MP, Mr. Chong, is also on board and providing a letter for us for support. Township support will also go a long way to, I think, helping a lot of folks around the area.
Great, thank you. Councilor Bailey.
Great, thank you for being here today. 100% support. This is fantastic news for the community. Just a question so that I can understand, if there was to be such machine in Puslinch, how does, I presume your patients would be able to use it? Would outside
Yes,
also be able to come in? And how does that bump,
absolutely, yes.
how does that, would it bump local patients?
No,
or how
it'll
does that
still be
work?
triaged.
Okay.
It'll still be triaged based on urgency. And as far as I know, the way the system works is we always say same day appointments for something that's urgent, which is why then we have to spend time calling around multiple imaging companies to see if we can get people in quicker. It's not going to bump anybody, but it'll be triage based.
Okay, and my understanding too is there's, you're part of a health team or a health area.
Correct.
Is it just for those people within the
No.
health area, or
No.
could someone from Hamilton come and
Correct.
someone from
That is
Milton?
correct. Yeah, there's no physical boundary that is set by the ministry in terms of accessing diagnostic imaging. So for example, if you were my patient and you were in Thunder Bay and you called, hey, I'm not doing well, I need something. And if I've had a long-term relationship, but I know you that, I feel comfortable, I can actually request diagnostic imaging within the province of Ontario. Yeah, there's no physical boundary per se.
To be clear, there's no cost associated with this?
Not to the township, not to anybody. Actually, I mean, if someone does critical thinking analysis, it's actually gonna be a net savings, because again, you're not sending people to emerge for something that can be handled that's really not an emergency. So it doesn't actually even cost the Ministry of Health more money, because you're still doing the same number of ultrasounds, you're still doing the same number of services, just more in a timely fashion.
And diverting folks going to the hospitals,
Correct.
which I agree is not proper use.
No,
of
it's not.
Facility. All right, thanks so much.
Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, thank you. A comment, 3 quick questions. So interesting timing. I just had a colleague that had a knee issue and spent the better part of 7 hours at Guelph Hospital seeking a ultrasound. So I can share a lived experience with what you just shared. So yeah, my 3 questions, and I think you noted this in your delegation. Does the medical center have the space and the capacity currently? So we're not looking at a new build, or
No.
it's within the existing
Correct.
the structure?
Yes.
Ballpark, and I won't hold you accountable to this, but like what's the all-in cost of bringing in an imaging unit to the facility, roughly speaking?
I'm not the one bringing in the imaging. It's the company that's doing that, and they will incur the cost of that.
Okay, gotcha. So I was curious just how that works per se. And I think my last one you already answered was it's open to the general public.
Right.
It's basically a booking process based on urgency, and then ultimately
The patient's physician will be able to, or their healthcare professional will be able to request an ultrasound.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good. You know what? I'm quite supportive. You know, we live in a rural community to a degree. We're encompassed, surrounded by urban municipalities, but the chance we can have to have some of these type of services in the medical space for our population is a good thing in my mind. So I'm supportive. Thank you.
Mr. Gwynn.
Thanks for coming today, and the counselors before me have asked some really good questions. I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward. As Councilor said, this is a rural municipality. I myself just spent about 9 hours in the ER on Friday last week, so I do believe that this is a much better use of you shouldn't have to go to ER to get ultrasound. So thank you for doing that. I think it's great that we have our facility and our community pharmacy. I know you have skin cancer screening there as well. So those are all really wonderful things that we have in our community. So
Thank you.
thanks for advocating.
Thank you. Mrs. Wilson.
So I don't have any questions either, but thank you for opening up the office there and continuing to expand and provide all the services that a community such as ours need and don't have to worry about going to the big city, so to speak, to get them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's great, I believe, you and your wife operate the practice, correct?
Yes, and we have a third position. So the reason why we have the space, and some of you were present 6 years ago when I last came to council, we had designed the clinic for 4 physicians and we decided not to have a 4th physician. So we have 3 physicians and third one's lovely. So that's hence the extra space that's available without doing any different changes.
My doctor's office was the Carlisle Medical Center, and they've now moved down to Parkside, but when they were operating there, they had blood work, x-ray, I wouldn't call it full service, I don't believe they had ultrasound, but the convenience that was as a family to go there. And for you to be replicating that, and you're building upwards where fortunately they went the other way for whatever reason. So I think the service that you and your wife and your team can provide the community is excellent. And there was never a question on my mind that council wouldn't support you on this. Is there a form letter that they provided we need to fill out, and do you need a resolution from council or?
So through the chair, we do have a resolution prepared to provide that letter of support, and then we'll work with Dr. to seek exactly.
So we'll do both at the same time, see for information and this person will read the resolution.
The delegation finding any caution regarding the letter of support for diagnostic ultrasound services and placenta receipt for information, and that council provide a letter of support from the Morrisville Medical Center to support diagnostic ultrasound services.
Please, Councilor Bailey. Councilor, go ahead. Last questions? Maybe.
Would you like the letter
Or
from?
you can just actually hand it to Laura and we'll either upload it to our file or
Thank you again.
if you have any other needs, just reach out and let us know.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Next, I'll invite Karen March Slate down for him. Oh, sorry, it's Karen and Bill. Sorry.
Do you work with Ian? Okay, so we're able to share a presentation. Okay, so you've got the presenter things, you guys can know what screen and everything on them.
Morning, nice to see both of you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for having us.
Oh. Ready?
Sharing.
Oh, sorry, it's just there, your presentation.
Morning, Mayor and members of council. My name is Karen Slade, and along with Bill Knetch, we're here today on behalf of the residents of Kalpas Road and all intersecting streets. We are presenting a proactive plan that addresses an escalating infrastructure and safety crisis. Since October 2025, our neighborhood has documented 37 separate emergency detour events where our narrow local road was subjected to 401 and Highway 6 traffic. We are asking council to partner with us on an enforceable, long-term solution before a major infrastructure failure or an emergency response bottleneck occurs. Let's look at the data. We have documented 37 overflow events in just 10 months. This record is actually conservative as it only captures times when residents were home to witness it. A clear precedent for intervention was set on July 11, when Kalpas was temporarily closed during a major 401 overflow. When nearby highways close, our rural road inherits highway level traffic volumes. Residents are regularly dealing with gridlock, dangerous passing, stop sign failures, and road rage. This directly exposes school buses, pedestrians, cyclists, and farmers to extreme safety risks. The roadbed itself is failing under the strain. We are dealing with washouts, deep rivulets, surfacing corduroy logs, and culvert damage. Minor maintenance patches are no longer working. Our goal today is not to block local access. It is to stop Kalpas from acting as an automatic, unmanaged pressure release valve for the 401 and Highway 6. We need a repeatable management framework before the next major event. Safety is our most urgent priority. When highway detours hit, Calfas can lock up entirely. This creates a dangerous scenario where emergency responders could be completely blocked from reaching local residents or the nearby senior's home. To address this, we request that council designate Calfas Road as a community safety zone under the Highway Traffic Act. We ask that this designation be paired with an aggressively low speed limit and prominent signage. Regardless of any future decisions on the road surface, we need maximum traffic calming implemented. This may include physical speed bumps, chicanes, or pinch points, a potential one-way bridge designation, and regular foliage trimming to clear the blind spots. Beyond traffic volumes, we must recognize the unique historical character of this road. Historical estimates this corridor and its bridge date back roughly 180 to 195 years, constructed between 1831 and 1846. It was built for pedestrian and horse traffic long before the automobile era. The underlying timber corduroy structure, the gravel road bed, and the adjacent Morriston Pond are not isolated assets. They tell a singular settlement story. Therefore, we ask council to formally evaluate this corridor as a candidate cultural heritage landscape and complete a heritage impact assessment before any major structural or modernizing changes are authorized. We can't solve a road problem by creating an environmental water problem. Heavy detour traffic continuously grinds down the gravel and subsequent rain washes that sediment straight into Morriston Pond. While paving might seem like an easy environmental fix, engineering shows it creates a major risk. An impervious asphalt surface accelerates runoff, concentrating road salt, calcium chloride, petroleum, and heavy metals directly into a sensitive ecosystem. Gravel holds a natural ecological advantage because its permeable surface slows down and filters runoff, but only if heavy highway traffic is kept off of it. If paving is ever pursued, the drainage must be custom engineered for the pond, not just to shed water off the road. The core question is, what design protects the residents, the historic bridge, and the pond simultaneously? We believe council has two viable road management options forward, but both paths require the exact same foundation of maximum traffic calming and a ban on heavy trucks. Option one is to keep the gravel and preserve the historic roadbed. This path prevents bridge and roadbed failure by legally and physically discouraging through traffic, combined with navigation provider partnerships to remove the road from the GPS detour algorithms. Option two is to pave, but strictly under an infrastructure protection mandate, not to accommodate highway detours. This would provide a durable surface to eliminate gravel washouts, but the physical design must be deliberately hostile to through traffic using engineered single-lane sections or chicanes. To break down the options, keeping gravel preserves the rustic character of our corridor and maintains a permeable surface that reduces concentrated water runoff. However, the conditions are strict. Heavy detour traffic will continue to destroy the roadbed if left unchecked. Choosing this path means council must commit to regular structural inspections of the corduroy base, enhanced drainage controls, and an enforceable detour closure protocol. Keeping gravel works only if Calfas is completely removed as a highway relief route. Conversely, paving offers a more durable running surface that eliminates dust and frequent grading, allowing traffic calming features to be permanently built into the asphalt design. The downsides, however, are severe. Paving naturally increases traffic speeds and threatens Morriston Pond with high velocity contaminated runoff unless complex drainage systems are installed. For the neighborhood, our non-negotiables for paving are clear. It must not trigger widening, property encroachment, or local improvement charges to the residents. It must be designed purely to protect the infrastructure, not to add traffic capacity. We also need to look at the intersection of Highway 6 and Leslie Road Concession 1, which requires a safer permanent solution. We request that council authorize a formal traffic study to evaluate whether traffic signals or a roundabout is best suited for this location to keep traffic safely moving on Highway 6 while allowing safe entrance to number 6 from Leslie Road Concession 1. We ask council to coordinate this review with Wellington County and the MTO and seek provincial cost sharing, since this bottleneck is entirely driven by provincial highway traffic. In summary, we are asking council to authorize a definitive multi-part directive. Establish CALFAS as local traffic only, closing it to through traffic during highway detour events. Pursue official community safety zone status with a lower speed limit and a comprehensive traffic calming package. Coordinate these restrictions with Google and Waze to remove CALFAS Road from navigation detour routing. Commission a professional structural assessment of the bridge and a drainage review. Evaluate the corridor as a candidate cultural heritage landscape before major structural changes. Protect residents from property encroachment or local improvement charges if paving is pursued. CALFAS Road was built nearly 2 centuries ago to serve a quiet rural community. It was never engineered to be an unmanaged overflow valve for Highway 401. With massive highway construction projects ahead, the pressure on our road is going to intensify. We urge council to protect people first, protect our historic bridge and pond second, and decide the physical road surfaces only after those critical safety constraints are legally and physically secured. Thank you for your time.
Bill, would you like to add anything?
No, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Good job. Good. I do have to ask before I open up the calendar. Where's the bridge? I don't know.
When you are between the two ponds, the small pond on the north and the larger pond on the right, that's a corduroy bridge through there.
Oh.
And if, for those that don't know what a corduroy bridge is, and I can actually give a little bit of history, John Kalfas, who the road is named for, and his neighbors laid logs. And that's what that corduroy bridge is. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah, I was thinking of a bridge in there. Okay, excellent. Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, fantastic presentation, and I really appreciate how you've not only, outlined the concern, but also given a lot of solutions and suggested different partners that can help all with this, because that's a lot of the problem is figuring out how can we do this and who can we partner with, and what's a good movement forward. A couple of things I'm going to touch on. I'm just wondering, you mentioned the concession 1 Highway 6 intersection. I'm just wondering if staff can give an update on we've already talked about that in the past, about engaging MTO and trying to put in lights. And I'm just wondering if we can have a little update on where we're at with that intersection.
So through the chair, staff did receive direction from council on a number of occasions to work with the MTO and make those specific requests around mitigation at that intersection. So whether it be traffic lights or whatever a traffic analysis would dictate is necessary there. So staff have been working with the MTO. We did get a response back. They did look at their traffic data that they had. It was fairly recent traffic data as well. And they ultimately said it did not warrant a traffic light to be installed there. So we've had those conversations. They've given us the response. We continue to advocate for safety measures on that road and for mitigation. We do that at a staff level, but we also do that politically at our different conferences as well. So I can just share that we were at the AMO conference in Ottawa, where we were able to meet with the MTO and discuss that as well. So it is something that we are actively advocating for. It's just not something where we have the jurisdiction to do it. We need that done by the MTO.
In your presentation, did you not mention concession 7 and concession 1, or were you referencing Highway 6 South and concession 1? The roundabout.
Didn't mention 7.
Okay.
Unless I misspoke, which is
But that was in my mind, because when you were talking about the traffic coming down Calfast and it was due to the intersection, my thought was because the backlog at 7 and 1, and
Yeah.
that's your road is the next road back.
Yeah.
That's so yeah.
we have ideas for that as well. But we didn't have time. So, I mean, when you talk about the 7th, a lot of the traffic does come down the 2nd. And as a partnership with MTO, I would hope that we could get them to put better signage up, directing people to the EDR. Took a little drive around that area, and one place where it's really noticeable to us is that where the 2nd ends at the 7th concession, there's nothing that tells traffic where to go. So if a large sign was erected by the MTO at that area, directing people north, the correct EDR, which is County Road 34. And then again, when they get across that bridge where they meet the 7th to turn left, if there was traffic direction there, along with, you know, maybe better signage at that point, that trucks and traffic weren't supposed to be on the 7th, and we know how aggressively they want to be because they've cut down the cameras. But you know, just things like that. And to my knowledge, if you get to the 2nd at 35, which would be a natural turning point to go to the 34, I don't think there's any large noticeable signage there either. So I think if the MTO would partner with the township and get a little bit better directional things for people, that it would be a start.
I just want to add to Courtney's comments, the engagement with the MTO and the light at session 1. We were initially told they would calculate the traffic volumes of concession 1 and Leslie and combine them. Then they came back to us and said, well, you have to close. Is Leslie the south? No, concession 1 is the southern one. You have to close concession 1 before we'll do our study to determine if it warrants a light. So we were in the position of, well, we're not going to close that because it would put more traffic at the remaining entrance onto Highway 6. So they kind of did an audible on us, and we were obviously very disappointed. So we were continuing to advocate for that light and that intersection improvement. The initial conversation was, this is great, they're going to combine the two, because at the end of the day, we committed, generally speaking, we said, if the two add up to warrant a light, then we will have a public discussion of closing that or making it one way or something. And then they changed their mind on us. So we were very, and that's why we continue the application at AMO. Saw MVP Rasinski was in on a delegation with the MTOPA, and I mentioned again the challenges of traffic due to the backlogs and how we need a bypass, we need improvements. So as Ms. White Fox pointed out, we were mentioning it. So anyways, I just wanted to give you that background on the light, because they had kind of given us some indication one way and then they changed. So
I just want to give you an update as well. So we've been in contact with project team that are in charge of the phases for MTO that they're constructing right now. And again, we wrote to them to encourage to revisit this whole issue. Either a roundabout or traffic lights. After especially the accident that we had, closing the highway both ways for 2 days straight. So I think it's a serious concern. I think we have to encourage MTO to work with council. And also, you know, Wellington County, we have to get these bodies together, like, to figure out. Because at the end of the day, these are Ontario highways we're talking about, and it comes down to the responsibility of the provincial government. And if they decided to downgrade the Morriston bypass, that was supposed to start with shovels in the ground in 2019, they need to take some responsibility for what the township is dealing with, because the minute something happens on these highways, Puss Lake becomes a slow-moving parking lot instantly.
yeah, for sure.
So I think it's something we have to keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Karen. Something else I heard you say was requesting a community safety zone designation for that area. And again, I know there's sort of checklists, and is it through the county where we get that, or is it through the province? Who designates a community safety zone in a lower tier municipality?
So
Do we know?
through the chair, my understanding is that the township could do that on the local road, but there are criteria that we have to look at. We've not designated any of our roads in that way, but we did look at it as a part of the ASC programs that were in place a few years ago. So we do have that work done that we could bring back to council.
Yeah, I think flagging that the seniors residence is there is probably something that would meet the criteria. I don't know the distance, you know, if it would make it all the way down over the bridge to the stop sign or to the light, but I'd like to see if we can, you know, look at anyway what the criteria is and see if that would meet community safety zone designation. And the third part, I'm going to touch on the navigation component. In fact, my brother-in-law used to work for Google, and I actually sent him an email the other day. He hasn't responded yet, but just trying to understand how can we be influencing the Waze and the Google and stuff like that, whether it's making sure that the gravel road is properly mapped. Like, I don't know if it's based on a lot of mapping or how that works, but maybe we can ask staff to just look into how can we try to influence sort of the navigation that's out there, because when I did look into it, it looked like it could be something a municipality could give a little weight behind. So I'll leave it there.
Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, thank you. An incredibly thoughtful and detailed presentation. So I appreciate the time you put into this. This wasn't something that probably got whipped together last night.
Last night.
Certainly, from my standpoint, very noticeable. So thank you. And a lot of really insightful recommendations. So I think, yeah, just my notes here. It very much appeared that this was a community-led discussion, not, you know, the two individuals in front of us. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I really didn't have any questions. I think from my standpoint, I'd encourage staff to digest this and get back to you guys with some tangible ideas. You know, we have a road master plan that I think is part of this larger traffic headache that Highway 6 and the 401 thrusts upon this municipality. And I think probably Calfas is an epicenter of that, and given the condition of that road, it's a bit different than, say, concession 1, concession 7 that are paved, and the degradation and, you know, higher density residential, a good portion of it. So yeah, I think I would just encourage staff to digest this and certainly commit to coming back to you and the community group with a dialogue, but very thoughtful. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, I would echo that. Really, really great presentation today. And thank you too for all of the support that you brought with you. I know that Calfas is the immediate concern here today, but I think, you know, the underlying issue is the vulnerability of the entire Morrison Aberfoyle road network during these 401 closures. And of course, we know that, and that's, you know, a big, this is why we're all advocating for the Morrison bypass. I just had a couple questions for staff. I know as we prepared for a delegation, at one point, we had done some drone work. The traffic and the backups specifically in that area during 401 closures. How do we also do traffic counts, like official traffic counts of like how many vehicles are going through that area when we have a 401 closure?
So through the chair, we don't have traffic counts. I know that part of budget, we are looking at different radar equipment, and I know that at EMO, we were able to, Mayor Sealy might bring it up as well, we were able to actually connect with a vendor where they have those traffic counting built in.
Okay.
So it's something we can look at through budget.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, just as I think that this, like you've said, it's gonna have to be kind of a coordinated approach. I personally feel that it is, the township, the county, MTO, the OPP were supposed to delegate today. I wanted to ask them about that. And I think that having those traffic counts would be really helpful. The other thing I wanted to ask about is when there is a closure on the 401, is the township, how does the township know that's happening? Is there a formal notification process? Is there sort of like a plan of attack when those happens? Or it's just kind of 401's closed and people are gonna go where they're gonna go?
So through the chair, we do subscribe to get notified through sort of the software system that we have. We do that more for our purposes, just to understand if something's gone on. We can anticipate if we want to ask for enforcement, whether that be through our heavy truck cameras or otherwise. We also usually are responding through the fire department, so we have a little bit of insight there, but there's no formal notification that comes from the MTO or any other agency. And again, the detour routes, the established detour routes are signed, but that doesn't mean anything. And if there is an incident like on Highway 6, you're going to see emergency responders directing traffic. Again, they're likely not giving immediate consideration to local roads, or they're just trying to get traffic moving away from the emergency.
Is that something that we could look into, is forming some kind of notification procedure, like when the 401 is closed? Township activate some kind of a plan to help notify people where to go and divert traffic to the proper places.
So through the chair, that can be part of what we look into. I don't know if that's possible, but we can look into it.
Okay.
Am I allowed to interject on that? Sorry, it's not just when the 401's closed. It can just be in gridlock. So like if there is a way that when we know that, I mean, we know, it was funny because when we were contacting all of our friends and neighbors, you know, the first thing out of all of their mouths was, yeah, you always know when there's a problem on the 401 because it's almost immediate. But not all of those include total closure. Sometimes it's just excessive traffic. So it is kind of a two-part, if you don't mind me jumping in, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, other than that, I think, I think it's something that we can look at a little bit more holistically and come back.
Councillor Spose.
Yes, thank you, Karen, Bill, for coming and give a very thoughtful and thorough presentation. I don't have any questions of you've done a very thorough job. I do have questions of staff. I was wondering if the director of roads is on the available for some questions.
Through the chair, I don't believe he is available today.
Okay, so I guess the questions I would have is staff is what sort of traffic calming measures can be put on today type of thing on the gravel road? So if you can take that back and just sort of report back. The other issue that was raised is lack of signage designating the detour roads. So wondering if we can put something together to send to Wellington County and the MTO to suggest that they work on signage to probably designate the detour road in the event of a slowdown or accident. And third thing I was going to talk about is you raised a very interesting point about having a cultural heritage destination for the road. Wondering if we can pass that on to the Heritage Committee to look at and sort of consider as part of heritage as for the township. Yeah, and in terms of paving or not paving, right now I can tell you that paving of that road is not going to happen for a long time. There's a lot of other priorities of that. So working with paving it as it is for a long time, and hopefully things like the heritage designation and some of the signage and some of the traffic calm measures staff can report on and help improve the situation. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Well, I echo that great presentation and you did very well, and hopefully the nerves is still a little bit more relaxed. We've all presented to different groups and I still feel nervous. I tell them things that. So I still feel nervous speaking in front of people, and it's something I'm just going to learn to do it. So it's one thing. I think we need a list of the requests because in your presentation you said formally a couple of times it was maybe one or two things. So one of the community safety zone, the cultural designation, because we're gonna have to put this through the budget process. If we do those studies all those studies that you asked for, if I were to throw a dart at the dartboard, we're looking at $100 grand. And that's gonna be at minimum 2-3% tax increase to every taxpayer in Coastlands just for those studies for that road. Not saying we wouldn't do it, but there's financial implications, right? There are things we can do that would be less for that. The speed limit, this is one thing I say, people that have an 80 want a 70, 70, 60, 60, 50, 50, it just goes down, down, down. What we need is more enforcement, and that's gonna be part of it. And OPP have to do more enforcement. I've been seeing them on Banna Street in Morrison sitting in the 50 zone, and they've been out and doing a lot more. Some of it in the report, I hope the report shows, tickets. I don't necessarily want tickets, I want warnings just then people know, well, anyways, so enforcement is a big problem. We can put your road at 10 kilometers an hour. Nobody's enforcing it, it doesn't mean the hell it means.
Valid.
Truck cameras, that was a direct result of the, you know, concerns from citizens with the heavy trucks. Your one picture online there of the live fish driving by. That was a response from council because of partially the backlog of coral. I agree with you, it's not always closed. It functionally is closed because of, you know, the traffic is at standstill and it goes everywhere. And, you know, respecting taxpayers' money, because that concession 7 was paved 4 or 5 years ago, and it is beat to snot. It's got cracking, and that's because of the heavy trucks. And then somebody cut the cameras down, which is very disappointing. I would, yeah, so we're trying to help. So I would suggest that staff work with you to determine, you know, the 4 or 5 items they report back on costing and implementation, along with Councillor Bailey and I had some conversations about the waste component. And did we connect with Greg or not? I remember texting them, our FCM representative. I wasn't sure if the waste component of your ask would be a federal, because they regulate the internet and wireless and all that stuff. So wasn't sure if we should be advocating through FCM. So we'll try to find that avenue. Local traffic only, labeling the road, and need staff to report back on that. First take on that would be, I don't think we can make roads essentially closed. They're either open or they're not. There is an interim period, you know, if it's under construction, but that even generally, if what road are we doing right now, is it concession 2 on the west side? We give jurisdiction of the road over to the construction company. And then it's essentially their road until we completed all our inspections and we're happy with it, and we take it back. So you'll see the local only signs then. So obviously the homeowners can drive it. I don't know if legally we could put up, again, when people adhere to it, that's a different discussion, but so staff will have to report back on that part. I'm just trying to be upfront.
Fair.
You know, that I'll leave it there, because I mean, there's some, I penned down here one way. You don't want traffic on Calfast, make her one way from Telford, but I'm guarantee you everybody west of, is it Telford? What is it, Telford? No, what's the other?
Such court is right at the stop sign.
Everybody west of that will not be happy with that one way, but that would stop the traffic from coming down there. So again, we were at the AMO conference, we brought it up with the MPP. I did see Mark at a store in town, and I was coming from Ipperwash home, and I was by 97. And there was an accident on 401, and I hit a wall, and the Waze or whatever I was using threw me off. I went through every residential road in Cambridge, and all I could think of was us. Like, I'm doing exactly what people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we aren't alone, but it's not right. But I thought, I don't know how we fix this, because I was doing the exact same thing, just trying to get through to get home. So anyways, thank you for your presentation. I thought you did a wonderful job. And staff.
Motion.
Sure.
So it's to receive for information, and the council directs staff to report back on traffic calming, emergency detours, signage, speed mitigation measures, and the other requests outlined in the presentation materials for Calfast Road as part of the 2027 budget process. The council directs staff to continue to advocate for traffic mitigation measures at Highway 6 and Concession Road 1 intersection with the MTO. And the council directs staff to investigate further signage near Concession Road 2 and Concession Road 7, better directing traffic to the established detour route on Wellington 34. And the council directs staff to pass the cultural heritage designation request to the Heritage Advisory Committee for review and recommendation for council.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, just not knowing next steps, when you say that you'll get back to us, how does that work?
So through the chair, we'll use your presentation material. If staff have questions as we draft a report back to council, we'll reach out to you directly, but we'll also let you know when that report comes back to council for consideration as part of the 2027 budget process.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll send you more concise list.
Yeah, that's
So
how that
just
corresponds
for-
back and forth.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we can move a second for that, please. For Hurst, Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Carry. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, like. Go ahead. Next, I'll invite CBN representatives down to the table. Well, we're. Go to the meeting of the chair?
No, that's okay.
Morning.
Morning, Mayor Sealy.
Let's wait, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Talk about it. What else today? All right, then, good. Start with me. Oh, are you the presentation? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Lauren. Good morning, Mayor Sealy, members of council. My name is Neil DeRuyter, planner with MHPC Planning, joined by Andrian Samard from CBM. My colleague Yarl Amadi from MHPC is with us, as well as from CBM, Jen DeLeemans. Hope council's having a great summer. We're here before to talk about the Anthony Pit application, which was a recently submitted sand and gravel pit application on Victoria Road. Just a little bit about the project itself. CBM submitted applications in May of 2026. So similar to what you've seen from the other pit applications, there's concurrent applications that go in to the county for an official plan amendment, as well as to the M&R for a license application. The area that we've shown in the map here, the area in blue, that is the proposed license area of the pit. That's about 18 hectares. And then the area within yellow is the proposed extraction area where sand and gravel extraction will occur, and it's just under 9 hectares. Just with respect to that area too, there's just under 4 hectares that would be extracted below the water table, and then the remainder would be above the water table extraction. A maximum annual tonnage limit that is being applied for is 1 million tons per year. There is roughly 1 million tons of sand and gravel from this site within the extraction area. At this site, there'd be no on-site processing. Materials would go to other CBM facilities for processing. The majority of the pit is identified as what's known as a selected sand and gravel resource area based upon provincial geological mapping. That's that area that you see in the red shade. Corresponding to that, the county official plan also identifies this area within a mineral aggregate resource area overlay. Next slide, please. Just, I guess, with a bit of the context for the area as well, I should have touched on this. Across the road is the CRH Aberfoyle pit. The entrance to the proposed Anthony pit is located along an existing driveway entrance on Victoria Road. So that entrance is just a bit north of the CRH truck entrance. The area that's in the purple outline, that was formerly a CBM pit known as Tico pit, which I believe was rehabilitated and surrendered just under 10 years ago. The property itself is owned by a private landowner, so CBM has entered into a lease with that landowner to extract the sand and gravel from the site. The setbacks that have been established for this site are 30 meters from the adjacent Mill Creek provincially significant wetland. There is a concentration of significant environmental features, particularly to the west as you get closer to Aberfoyle. There is a significant wetland as well as significant woodlands located within that area. The proposed hours of operation, similar to the other CBM operations in the area, would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturdays. And I should note on the traffic, there was a traffic impact study undertaken for the application. At the maximum extraction rates, it's 12 per hour, so that's 6 in, 6 out. And as I noted, there is just around 1 million tons. CBM's applied for a 1 million ton limit. With respect to the extraction area and the site itself, this is sort of a reduced time frame scale of operation. Next slide, please. I just wanted to highlight the proposed rehabilitation plan, highlight some of the elements. I'll start with the area towards the west where you see the two ponds. That's the area where below water extraction is proposed. So the rehabilitation would result in the creation of two ponds that are just under 4 hectares in size. Between the two ponds, there is a wetland that's proposed to be created. When woodlands are proposed along setbacks and adjacent to features, that total is approximately 2 hectares in size. And then the areas to the east, as you get closer to Victoria Road, that is proposed to be rehabilitated back to agriculture. I should have noted at the beginning that the majority of this area that's proposed for extraction is currently in corn production. So that area in the east half, which is about half of the area, the extraction area, would go back to agriculture. Next slide, please. So with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment that's been applied for with the township, is proposing to rezone the agricultural zone to extractive industrial zone and an extractive industrial zone with site-specific provisions. What we've tried to do with the bylaw, and this is sort of based upon experience in working with the county and township on previous proposals, is really focus in the extraction zone itself, where extraction is proposed to the extraction area. And then areas that are containing the setbacks or areas where extraction is not proposed, there would be site-specific provisions allowing for any visual and acoustic mitigation measures, such as the construction of berms, but then also reflecting that those areas are not where extraction is proposed. Next slide, please. Just to highlight the application materials that have been submitted, per the requirements of the Aggregate Resource Act, as well as the county official plan. There's the Aggregate Resource Act site plans, planning reports been prepared, noise study, natural environment report, cultural heritage report, including a heritage impact assessment. There's been a best management practices plan for dust. Traffic studies been prepared, and then a couple of water reports, one known as the maximum predicted water table report, basically identifying what that elevation is, as well as what's a level 1 and 2 water report. And then there's also archaeology reports that have been prepared with the application. Next slide, please. Just with respect to the next steps, so obviously here today, we're here, supporting staff's recommendation that council deem this application complete, such that it can allow that process to move forward with the formal review by commenting agencies, engagement of your external peer reviewers, and then starting the public consultation process, including mail out to neighbors, PDAC meeting, and a public information meeting. I did want to highlight, just because it's so closely related in terms of the steps for the license application, consultation is not yet started. We want to try to line it up with the township process as much as possible, but that is likely to commence later this fall. So very similarly, that'll also include public consultation. CBM will be holding an open house. There will be a formal 60-day comment period. Any comments that CBM receives through that process, they then have to attempt to address those comments. So very similar to the process that you've seen with the other active CBM applications that are before you. And with that, I wanted to keep this brief. Happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
For presentation, Councilor Bailey.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I'm just gonna mostly just focus on the closeness to the residential area of Mini Lakes. So when you look on the map, it's very close to in there. So I'm concerned about how close it is to the Mini Lakes residential complex, which we know already is already dealing with precarious water and wastewater system. They have a private communal well, and so my little bit of digging kind of educated me that it's not covered under the Clean Water Act, but that it needs to be under Wellington County has some policies and stuff that fill that gap. So part of that was what I would like to see in the technical review for this to kind of fill that gap is a risk assessment, hydrological analysis, and a geotechnical investigation. And those are all different things that are recommended when a development is near a communal well, such as Mini Lakes. So I think I'll just leave it at that. There's, I understand we're just deeming it complete today, but I know there's more studies to be done, and I'd like to request some of that get done as well.
Through Mayor Sealy, thanks, Councillor Bailey, for the question. I was gonna note, it's an interesting sort of constraint with respect to that area. As you noted, it's my understanding is it's not protected under the Clean Water Act, but the county official plan does have specific policies for development nearby. So what we did in preparing the studies, and certainly we're happy to take that feedback back to ensure that it's going to be addressed specifically by the hydrogeological consultants, but we wanted to make sure that the water report and the hydrological and the hydrogeological evaluation considered that. There's a lot of information available on Mini Lakes, right? Both from, you know, water servicing, the private water servicing, but also the sewage handling, right? And the area that's closest to this proposed pit is adjacent to the site that contains the sewage disposal area or the sewage field. So there was a lot that had to go into that to evaluate that. So certainly we're look forward to working with, you know, the township and your peer reviewers to make sure that we've got all of that covered. But I just wanted to know for you and council that certainly that was an item, both from the land use compatibility perspective, but then also understanding sort of the relationship and potential impacts, you know, with the private water and wastewater servicing at that facility.
Maybe I can also flag that when you're reaching out to do the public engagement part, that community is invited. I don't know if it works with your kilometer distance, but if you're seeing how the bird flies,
Yeah,
they need to be, you know, notified.
for sure.
Yeah,
Further, Councillor Bailey.
I'm done. Yeah.
Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, I would echo Councillor Bailey's comments around the Mini Lakes. I see a lot of red flags here. Like that whole community's trying to figure out their sewage situation, and what I'd be very, very sensitive to is all of a sudden now we have an aggregate operation that's going to potentially impact their ability to manage their sewage. Like the unintended consequences are astronomical here. Like a lot of red flags in my mind here. One question I had, and maybe I misheard this, but there's the plan to extract 1 million tons and the total capacity of the pit's 1 million tons. So would that be like the potential timeline to extract that would be like a year to prep it, a year to extract, and then you're rated the rehabilitation? Is that can't hold you to this at this point, but is that the thinking here, or can you just explain that a bit more?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hurst. Yeah, first and foremost with Mini Lakes, certainly it's been a key thing that we've been identified and certainly, you know, we've talked about the servicing and the other aspects. But that, I'm glad you raised that question. There is just roughly 1 million tons of sand and gravel from this site. I know we've had discussions with this council about timelines on extracting other operations. CBM expects to be done this within 2 to 3 years. The other thing I would just point out, the Teco pit, which had a lot more reserves, you know, certainly helps to give an indication of how extraction can proceed through this with respect to those timelines and the ultimate surrender. But one of the things that we've looked at with the land use compatibility and how this site is phased is in recognition that this is a bit different than the other proposals in which it likely will be a couple operating seasons and then extraction's complete. So it's trying to figure out how to phase that in with, you know, with Mini Lakes, but then there's also other residences within the area too that have been considered as part of that planning.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that. Yeah, and I think, yeah, and maybe just my last comment is, yeah, it's another gravel pit type of thing, and it's in a pretty dense residential area. I kind of look at that as like, man, it's another one, and it's 1 million tons type of thing and like the impact to that local community. Like, I'm picturing this risk reward piece and I'm just questioning the value of doing that, but I'll leave that. That's just my 2 cents, but thank you. That was great.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to ask about the sort of the million tons that are available and the extraction of maximum of 1 million tons per year. And so it is a relatively short-lived pit. Is it necessary to have the hours of operation be 7 to 7, Monday to Friday, and on Saturdays? Given the small, the short-lived period of the pit, is it something that we could, you need to be operating on Saturdays, and we shorten the hours during the week? Given that it's such a small, relatively speaking, small amount in that actual pit.
Through the mayor to Councillor Goyette, I certainly can take that back with Andreon and CBM. You know, I think certainly we have to set the hours as we work on the studies and put them on the site plan. What I would say is similar to, you know, the other projects. All of that becomes open for review and discussion, right? And, you know, my experience is typically hours of operation are one of the key things that the public specifically is interested in. You know, I think with probably the reserves available here in the overall timelines, it's something that CBM certainly could take back and take a look at.
The other question I had, just in regards to Mini Lakes and specifically, and the impact on them and you know, their servicing specifically. I know you don't have to do this, and I know you're going to do engagement and open houses and things like that. Would it be possible that you did one physically in the Mini Lakes development, and so that they could come and speak to you directly? It's just if they're the most impacted by it, and I think it would be a good gesture to speak to them directly. Just a comment. Then the last thing I was hoping that you could explain, and I know I've seen this in other pits, the licensed area is larger than the extraction area. Can you just help me understand that, why that is?
Through the mayor to Councillor Goyette, it's a very good question. I could spend 30 minutes talking about the evolution and what we've done with the ministry. I don't want to bore you given the packed agenda, but basically you're right. The extraction area is contained within the license boundary. The license boundary is supposed to sort of capture anything that's related to the aggregate operation. So that includes typically, you know, internal access roads, the entrance, the berms. Typically we have monitoring walls that would be around the extraction area that get included within the license. It used to be, I would say 20 years ago, if we'd applied for this, we would have licensed just the entire property. Since that time, there's been a lot more discussion, specifically through the province. They don't want to see areas licensed that have no relationship with the aggregate operation. And one of the good, and this is very true on, you know, the other CBM applications, including Lake Pit, where the license gets sort of, it's kind of drawn along the edge of natural features. That's why we see these shapes of license boundaries. In this case, the reason you see sort of the extraction area tucked away in the back and the license coming out to the front of Victoria is to ensure that we captured all the elements that are needed with respect to specifically berms along the internal access road. There are houses to the north. The landowner also lives on this property. And so there's also going to be mitigation next to their property, next to their home as well. So it's to include all of that in the license so that it can then go on the site plan such that, you know, it's enforceable under the site plan.
Okay.
Councillor Spose.
Yes, so with respect to the hours that we like going up, I would support 5 days a week operation, 7 to 6. I would not support weekends. With respect to water protection protocol, do you have one in place? I've read your planning document. I couldn't find any reference to it there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Sapoulis, there typically is. I don't know offhand. Like typically what we would do is that would be included as an attachment within the water report. sort of that overall procedure and we can take that back just to make sure it is included like it typically it should be. So I just want to make sure we do certainly have that in place.
I couldn't find any reference to road cleaning protocol. They have the fugitive dust protocol, but not the road cleaning protocol. I think that's important, given the fact that Victoria Road is a pretty busy road. I'm glad the previous council was asked about the Mill Creek sewage, like that to me would be a big concern given the close proximity of those ponds and the impact on that in the short term as well as the long term. So I'm glad you'll be addressing it as part of your study. Okay, with respect to the turtle area be lost and the bat area that will be lost, if you're sort of hinting in the planning report that that structure will be reviewed by MESIP, it doesn't say positively in that you're going to do that. So I was wondering if that's a definitive sort of lawful statement, or are you planning to do that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Spoulos, we will look into that. I know those replacement habitats are included on the site plan as part of rehabilitation. So it's like with respect to that, I think it's incorporated. I know, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the ecologist through the natural environment report suggested that as a recommendation that the compensation and how it's planned, that we consult with Ministry of Environment, you know, as part of their responsibilities under the Species Conservation Act, to ensure that it's sort of fulfilling the intent of creating that type of habitat specifically for species at risk. But I will go back just to make sure we do. I'm pretty sure we do have that on the rehabilitation plan, because I know typically anytime we're involving sort of replacement of habitat, there has to be, you know, the compensation as part of that. And certainly we'd want to make sure that that's a requirement and fulfilling anything that came out of the natural environment report.
In the same vein, the turtle nesting area, you touch on it in the planning report. There's no statement with respect whether or not to be reviewed by any agency, so to speak, who take care of that sort of issue or review the nesting plan to see if it meets requirements.
Through the mayor to Councillor Spoulos, we will be engaging Ministry of Environment as part of the license application. So the site plans, the natural environment report, all of that will go to them for comment, and they will give us comments on what's being put forward. And certainly, you know, your peer reviewers too, I'd imagine will be looking into that as well. But I do want to take away from this discussion just to make sure what's been put forward on those recommendations are sort of incorporated with respect to the site plan.
The rehab plan, will that be available for the township to review, or is it sort of we'll do what we do type of thing, and that's rehab plan?
Through the mayor to Councillor Spoulos, it's included with all the other documents that have gone in with the township. Certainly, that the signal's been deemed complete.
Time's up.
Yes, the rehabilitation plan is available for the township's review, and certainly it'll be available for the public's review as well.
The last statement, question I have, the annual report costs, will be, we typically ask that the annual report be presented or prepared and given to the MTO or the MNRF, and we review it as well. So typically we get funding from the pit operators to pay for such review by our staff. So I'll ask that to consider as well. And the last question of staff is to do, they have a duty to have a public meeting under the AR MNRF, MNRA. And we have one to do under the Planning Act. So the public will be receiving two sets of public meetings.
So through the chair, certainly for the Planning Act, there is one. I don't know how, if it's still a virtual meeting or in person, or how that meeting under the ARA framework is being conducted, but there would be a public information meeting. Maybe the proponent could advise how that would be structured.
Through the mayor, Councilor Segulis, yes, there will be, and we're planning to do an in-person meeting. So this would be in addition to the public information meeting that the township would host.
Or so there'll be two public meetings. Okay, that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
There's been a lot of talk about mini lakes, but there's Mill Creek as well. And I don't know if they're gonna fall outside of that notification area, so I'm sure they're gonna be concerned whether or not, I have no idea where their leaching bed is or well, so I would appreciate full notification to all those residents, and Councillor Bailey brought it up. Again, it sounds as though you're going to do this anyways, but mini lakes is individual addresses. Years ago it was one, so it would have been captured under one. Now, there's a possibility that some of those landowners would be outside of we're planning 100 meters, 150.
120 if there's an OPA.
Anyways, sounds as though you're gonna
If-
notify everybody.
Even if half of them fall within that radius, we're still gonna notify everybody.
Thank you, appreciate that. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit here. Noise study, it's referenced in here that you've done one. What's the standard that, is there a regulation, Ontario regulation or Ontario standard that you are held to? Is there a number for that standard?
Through the mayor, my understanding is they would evaluate it against Ministry of Environment and PC 300 guidelines.
NPC 300?
And through the, Mr. Mayor, I can check to typically the noise consultants will also look and review municipal noise bylaws at the same time while they're doing those studies.
Okay, so sensitive noise receptors would be covered under the NPC 300, is that correct? And that would include the owner's home, right?
Correct.
Okay, so staff, I believe that was included with the application to staff. Didn't see much reference to it in here, but I'm fine with seeing that later. I also have concerns with, actually, I'll give some props first. Appreciate the delineation of, the extractive area versus just being, the whole site. That's important, so I appreciate that change for development. Recognizing the license area needs to be larger, whether it be for driveways or scale houses or any of those things. Actually, that just brings another thought. How do you ensure that the trucks aren't overweight leaving the pit? I don't know, maybe it's changed, but loaders have scales on them, but I don't know if they're considered legal scales for traversing the highway, and we have notification from MNR. They have no jurisdiction over that. I believe we were talking about Capital Pit. So we want to ensure that your trucks are complying to legal weight. I have concerns with the hours of use as well. What we're seeing from your other operations is trucks staging all over our roads. Right at the corner by the Schneider sign, they park on the side of the road, it breaks up the asphalt, it causes potholes on the, so part of what I'd want to see from CDM is some sort of dispute resolution, truck management. Getting some scowls from the audience, because we don't have authority over the OPP and they don't have the time to come and enforce illegal trucks parking, because if you open at 7 AM, they're gonna all stage at 6:30. Now, recognizing that may be a bit different here because you're taking the raw material over to Coburg, but the staging of these vehicles on our roads is unacceptable. And we need CBM to start taking some accountability, and that includes your other operations. The hours you use, road cleaning, that's been a constant concern with your operations. Are you willing to provide a maximum capacity for Coburg? So, right here, 1,000,000 tons in the ground here, and you're digging it. And I believe that you're digging the Whistling Shaft because of this central processing permanent land use that's kind of evolved over the years, and I'm referencing Coburg now. Those were licensed back in the day, and the idea is there's aggregated there. When it's extracted, then you move to the next site. But what we've seen is that these have become central processing sites, thus leads to the spread of aggregate extraction in the township. Asked before, and I'd like to know the answer, the maximum capacity of Coburg, or what CBM's plans are. Legal, Steve, which guy's still with you? One guy left. Steve May mentioned that for McNally, the silt is a marketable resource, and that there's intention to remove it, fill it, remove it, fill it to mean as permanent land use, which then leads to, You mentioned this was farmland, lake is very flat, very productive farmland, you're digging it all up. And I think core of the problem is that these processing sites are staying. So I'd like to know the capacity of your processing sites. Are we going to see an end to those sites, or do we have them forever? The traffic, the lights. This is one of an application that we've seen where there will be some restoration to agriculture. You're probably aware, or you should be, Brock University is developing standards for rehabilitation for above water table extraction back to agriculture. Timing on that, I heard you should say. I believe they're hoping to have it completed by 27, first quarter 27, maybe second quarter 27, with the intent that the math will incorporate those as their official comments. So where I'm going with this is that hoping that this file doesn't progress before that work is done. It's a 2-year project. I'm sure you know case studies and all that good stuff. So we have an opportunity here for this rehab plan to incorporate whatever recommendations come out of this Brock University study. So I'd like you to keep that on your radar. Maybe the timing will line up. Maybe it won't. I don't know. And I haven't seen any of they haven't even given drafts yet. So that's that. This is a lease. This property is what will you disclose the length of the lease or the expiration of the lease? Because there's concerns. I'm not. Why do we have 1 million tones in the ground when we have 1 million tones available per year? Those don't add up, as other councillors have identified. But if there's an end date to the lease, that might give some comfort to the council, because then that doesn't really matter to us. We know that here's the end of the lease, and this facility is not going to turn into a Coburg or a McNally. Or is that private?
Right now it's private.
Okay.
Right.
So then back to, there's 1 million tones in the ground, and you want 1 million tones per year from the province. Why isn't it that you're 6 trucks? What's a truck carry? 30 tones?
Yeah, through the mayor, just why isn't the 1 million add up with the 1 million? The idea for here is that extraction's completed likely in a couple operating seasons.
Well, the idea was Coburg be completed in, say, 15 years, has been 40.
Mr. Mayor, with respect, the type and the location for this 8 or 9 hectare extraction area, Coburn Aberfoyle is in a much different circumstance than I would encourage, like Tico across the road is the better comparator, right? With respect to the type of operation. Certainly we can go back with CBM to figure out like the overall timelines for when extraction started, when rehabilitation was complete, and when the license was surrendered. The idea, like, I guess to go back, if you further limited the extraction limit to, 500,000, 250,000, then you're just extending out that time frame and when extraction would be complete here. So like in other words, that, if CBM were to get a license here, the idea is that extraction is sort of completed as soon as they're able to on this site. But I would say certainly appreciate the comments and the concerns that have been expressed about the processing facilities, both at McNally and Aberfoyle. And I know certainly through the other active applications, there's more information that's being done in response to some of the concerns that have been expressed from the township, both in terms of the processing, but then the silt deposition that will be provided to the township shortly. But yeah, I would say, I think here the good comparator is Tico. I think that's kind of, but at a much smaller scale, and there'd be no way at Anthony Pitt to put in a plant like you see at Aberfoyle or McNally. It's not big enough. It doesn't have the infrastructure capable to have a facility like that to do processing, screening, washing, the trucking coming in and out.
I think the concern, and I'm more comfortable with a lease arrangement than CBM owning the property. I think the property owner has a vested interest in having work done and then move on, and they have some benefits, so it's all good. But it's as we've been told, it's your business, and there's a market turn down, and we have 2 trucks a year pull out of that thing, or 10, and it carries on forever. Whereas a lease, there's an end date, you can ask them comfort, so. Actually, from my perspective, at least it's a better situation than a relationship. But for mini lakes and all these communities, it'd be nice for them to know. But, and that's, those are my comments, I don't think, I have anything else to spur. Okay, do you have a recommendation?
It's received for information.
Okay, take a mover, second, please, Councilor Lewis, Councilor Hurst, all there. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
It's gonna be a busy one. Okay, on to the next. We're gonna move the. Oh, that is the search. Okay. So we'll do that, so the 941. She coming in, she attending.
Good morning.
Morning, Monica, nice to see you.
You as well.
Well, if you
So
wanna-
through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction to deem the zoning bylaw amendment application for the property municipally known as 4454 Victoria Road South, also known as Anthony Pit, complete. This is a procedural step which allows township staff and consultants to begin their technical review of the application. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You know, so I'm not gonna have staff read this lengthy recommendation, it's before you, for your review.
Through the chair, I would just add to it, just because we did hear quite a bit of feedback during the delegation from members of council of things they'd like to be considered, that feedback be forwarded on to our review team just for consideration.
If we move in a second, please, Councilor Lewis, Councilor Goda, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. It's carried. Excellent, thank you, Monica. And Joe, if he was there, I didn't see if he was there. Next, I'll invite John Neva. Come on down. So, press the break. Come on.
And John, P 6927, session 2.
Oh, it's not a public meeting, like, in that sense, so you don't have to. I don't.
When I
believe so,
heard
right?
Ray Peter speak himself, I thought that was
Nothing.
Mr. Mayor, council, thanks for the opportunity. to Delegate again, and I do apologize. It's been one of those years where we've seen a lot of each other. I should hand these out because I never trust audio visual. Thank you. And you. Thank you. I don't know whether Monica received the copy I sent, Courtney. Thank you.
Like they're fresh off the press.
Yes, that smell of ink. Item 10.4, the proposed hydro corridor across Puslinch came to my attention when another property owner called to say they just received notice of a proposed hydro corridor that would cross through the middle of a community project of ours called the Mill Creek Reserve. Several of council will already be familiar with this project, thanks to presentations we made to planning and to Sunrise for the disabled riding. For those not familiar, the Mill Creek Reserve is a community proposal for a 600-acre reserve made up of a mix of donated land and conservation easements to be stewarded by a land charity called RARE. Its purpose is to preserve for future generations what we see as, I don't know, we call it the soul of Puslinch, the forests and wetlands that were here before we came, the farmland that our ancestors developed, the log cabin, the bank barns, the fieldstone farmhouses, essentially what Puslinch is. And we hope that at some point the aggregate industry and the University of Guelph might also consider donating their lands to the east of this reserve along concession to effectively doubling its size and doubling the protection for Mill Creek. But that's a tangent. Suffice it to say, Route 4 of this proposed hydro corridor would pass through the center of that reserve. But that's not what we're here to talk about, because our concern is broader than that. And this is where our community group Help Protect Puslinch comes in. Based on multiple decisions, it appears the province, and we see this with the last presentation on Calfast Road, province somehow views our Puslinch Township as just a stretch of land on the map between important places like Hamilton and Milton, Cambridge, and Kitchener. That, of course, makes it convenient acreage to put industry, highway bypasses, cell towers, gravel pits, waste dumps, including excess soil, and most recently, this proposed hydro transmission line. were so insignificant that they plan to zigzag all across our township with each one of these proposed 4 corridor routes. That's illustrated on page 1 in front of you. Were so insignificant that they consider a proposed hydro corridor to be a brief chat about this proposed hydro corridor, to be extensive consultation with Puslinch. You can see paragraph 3 on page 2. Were so insignificant that they don't even mention that they have other concurrent plans for an even higher power hydro line to cross Puslinch. On page 3, you'll see a dotted blue line. I'm just pulling this up here because I don't have my cancel. On page 3, you'll see a dotted red line, which is the hydro corridor we're talking about today, that goes from the Puslinch station across to Preston, right in the middle on the right-hand side. But you'll also see above it that dotted blue line for a double the kilowatt capacity that also passes through Puslinch, right through the middle of Puslinch and below the Downey Line Guelph border, up to the north of Puslinch at 24. We're so insignificant that they would do all this rather than use the province's Highway 401 corridor and a minimum amount of adjacent land to build this hydro corridor in almost a straight line between hydro's starting point and finishing points, as you can see on page 4. And on page 4, we just draw that line between, and as I say, in the middle of all of their erratic suggested routes, that would go right from the start to the finish, shortest, cheapest, and least impactful. And this is where I don't need any more notes because common sense doesn't require notes. Look at this map, shortest, cheapest, least impactful, and it's either been ignored or dismissed. So when you look at this, you can see we laid out what we see as a proposal for 3 options here. The red line connects the start to Town Line. And, or I should say, to the beginning of their northern route as they have. This would minimize the significant impact on Puslinch and connect up to their northern route, which would still impact a lot of Puslinch. Second option would be to extend it right across the Town Line, which again has absolutely no effect on any significant parts of Puslinch, and then could connect up using Town Line, slightly east of Town Line, staying behind the residences above 34, and have almost minimal impact and meet up with their you can see their dotted northern route line up there and still come in from the north, because obviously they're looking to use Highway 24 to bring that line down into Cambridge. And then the third option would be to extend it right across to Franklin and directly connect up to their southern corridor. Now, yes, Franklin would be a little more difficult stretch because Cambridge has allowed so much development along the 401 there. But that's where the next couple of pages come in. The next page shows the starting point of the transmission line and across to Town Line. And as you can see, looking at that, there is a significant margin to the 401 that would allow for a transmission line along that entire route. The next page shows Town Line to, shows 35 to Town Line. 35, first one was starting point to 35, second one is 35 to Town Line. This one has even less impact. None of that area has been developed. And the final one shows the Franklin third stage and how it could go up Town Line and up above and meet their proposal at about Flatbridge Road there in the top center, and then come down 24, which is their already common route for all of the 4 routes going through Puslinch. So again, there is appears to be absolutely no reason why this would not have been an option to be considered. The next page, we look at a little more detail where you'll see the starting point. And obviously, they're going to say something like, well, aggregate pits pose a problem. Well, if you look at that closer up view of the aggregate pits and the transmission line, right now we have a transmission line that runs along concession 7. And not only runs along concession 7, but you'll see on the next photo, it then runs along Highway 401 beside the McNally pit. You can see the transmission line in the distance. I was standing on the concession 7 bridge across 401 in that photo. So it already runs along that aspect of the aggregate pit. So the aggregate pit should pose no problem to having a transmission line along the 401 corridor there. The next page shows a typical example of the space alongside the 401 for the rest of the corridor across to certainly 35 and then 35 to Franklin. There is absolutely nothing there to impede them. You've got hundreds and hundreds of meters, let alone the 30 meters they ask for to fit a transmission line in. And finally, on the Franklin, at the last page, you'll see the distance between, there are 5 points from town line to the southern corridor in Cambridge proper where buildings come this close. And even here, if you look at the scale in the bottom right-hand corner of 20 meters, there is still room to put a transmission corridor along there. Certainly reflective of transmission corridors we see along other lines. If you go and travel north on the Hanlon Expressway, you'll see the transmission lines come very close to the malls and the other industrial operations along Hanlon Expressway. So there's no reason even here where they could not avoid any significant impact on Puss Lynch entirely. And yet it's not even an option on 4 routes that they've offered to us. So we just throw that out and say, what was Hydro thinking here with these 4 proposed routes? So we really are hoping that the township will take this in hand and task Hydro with why this corridor wasn't considered. Because otherwise what it does, it pits Puss Lynch residents one against another for what is my route more significant than your route? And it shouldn't be. This is the shortest, cheapest, least impactful route, and Hydro has literally dismissed it for some reason. And certainly we can't find any reason for it. The last thing they might mention is the airport. We have a private airport belonging to the Reeds on the Reed property on 34. And they might say, oh, we can't have a Hydro line within a certain distance of that. If you go back to the, let's see, page 6, page 7, the one that shows the northern route in Hesper right in the middle, you will see the, everybody picked that one up. It says Silver Heights and Hesper right in the middle. This is the Franklin stage of the corridor. You will see the airport in Aikinsville's little horse track in the right-hand corner. That's where the airport is for Reeds. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see the regional Waterloo International Airport. Literally less than 90 seconds flight time for a passenger plane, and maybe a little over 2 minutes for a private plane, which is not disaster time frame. And the other thing is the Reed Airport has Hydro lines underground on its northern approach. So any passenger plane that had to make an emergency approach could simply diverge for 10 seconds and approach from the north instead of the south. So if that was raised, I hope Puss Lynch would dismiss that when it comes to any impact on choosing the route. So again, just leaving it there. We hope Puss Lynch will push strong for a Hydro 401 so that none of this has to come down to resident against resident, and certainly impact on residents, because Hydro lines, for all of their discussion about not being significant when it comes to health and that, we really don't know. And certainly in the future, it would be a pity to have this running erratically through Puss Lynch and find out in 20, 30 years that it has done significant damage to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councilor Beale.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for coming today. I have to admit, when I saw the initial proposal too, I was kind of confused why we're, going up and around and down and over and cutting through. I don't know anything about flights and diverting to different airports, but that seems to make, sense if that's an argument. Having the 401 there seems like a no-brainer. It seems like a common sense way. We've already got infrastructure in there. It's already, cutting through the township. So it does make sense to be a better option. I'd like to know why, I guess, Hydro One has proposed the routes that they've proposed. It's too bad that this option that John's proposing today can't be in the documentation that's going out to the public right now as an option. So I don't know how we approach Hydro, and I guess my question to staff is what sort of engagement do we have already with Hydro One? Will we be able to kind of get this as an option to the public meeting that's coming up? Kind of as an addendum to their proposal.
So through the chair, there has been, I would say, limited consultation with the township since we last had our Hydro One delegation, where this was sort of, I would say it was a kickoff, I'd say, with council. There was the specific request from council for that technical advisory committee and that the township wanted to participate. So I would say none of that has taken place prior to this notice coming out to our community. So staff will be we have been reaching out to Hydro since this was given to us to talk about what that further engagement can look like and what our participation is going to be in this open house and how is that TAC committee going to be established. I would say just generally a comment. I don't think that anyone anticipated that it would be moving this quickly from the delegation that we heard at Hydro. It was explained to us that it was going to be a longer consultation. There would be one-on-one, door-to-door with individuals, things like that. So there's a lot of questions from staff still that we're hoping to get answers to.
Yeah, I would just like to, encourage this option pushed when we can.
Awesome. Sorry, councillors.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Always thoughtful and on target. The veterinarian thing doesn't work out. Maybe you should get into hydro logistics. Be a good career for you.
I like my cow.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot of comments per se beyond yeah, I'm supportive of what came out in the Q&A. I think that's a good path forward that staff have addressed and Courtney just spoke to. Yeah, I would say this has come a lot faster than based on that initial discussion with Hydro at very much a conceptual stage is what my feeling was. And now we're seeing proposed maps and that becomes quite difficult to navigate at the cadence that they're at. So yeah, I think just really leaning back to Hydro One and making sure that there's a very robust consultation process and that the needs of the community are well addressed. And I don't disagree with anything that you've proposed. So quite thoughtful. Thank you.
Can I ask if council was aware of the other 500 kilovolt transmission line?
I had some awareness of it. I'd seen an email that similar that they were proposing it, but we hadn't been officially, to my knowledge, the township hadn't been officially engaged. So I think, I forget whether it was IESO or somebody sent out a heads up essentially. So
It seems so relevant.
yeah, I don't know if any other council members see that IESO, but no official engagement to the township. That's good.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. It's frustrating that my understanding was that they were going to go door knocking from person to person and introduce this information. I've seen a flurry of frustration on social media of this is catching people totally off guard and coming totally out of left field for a lot of people. I know through our Q&A, there is a motion regarding this, so I'll let the counselor speak to that, but I will say that I'm also concerned that the sort of rollout of the so-called engagement is just an open house where I envision some boards set up and informal conversations with people. I don't think that's appropriate for something of this scale. So I would support, which I believe is coming, having a formal presentation at a public meeting with a moderated Q&A so that this kind of discussion can be heard and answers received to all, so everyone has the same information. I think what you've shown us today makes a lot of sense. And I am not clear how, if we have input based on what we hear from some today and from the public open house or public meeting. How do we, how is council to engage with Hydro One on this? So I would definitely support having them come back to this council and be able to express our concerns and our feedback that way.
That's, and the committee I made a series of, motions, proposed statements, that we'll discuss, I guess, when the actual correspondence is discussed, but also I'd like to add your, presentation as part of the motions and to ask that, Hydro One consider, the route proposed by you as one of the options to be presented at the, public, open house.
Thanks for coming today. I look forward to the discussion around Councilor Lewis's recommendations. Yeah, we had the initial meeting with the IESO and very much so they indicated this was early and council stressed the importance of the communication. And what was it that we were dealing with elsewhere where there was a TAC committee created? I don't know if it was CA amalgamation. So we asked them about this technical advisory committee. I can't recall if they proposed it or we, it doesn't matter. And they said that TAC committee will develop the criteria that the proposal will then merit each route. So very much so, so we want to be a part of that TAC committee because we represent citizens. I'm pretty certain they even said they wouldn't be putting out proposed routes until they had at least narrowed it down so that you didn't cause angst among the community. And then this came out, the township wasn't even aware. Staff, when did we receive the email? After it came out, we either John, you sent an email or Councilor Spool sent an email. So then we did an inquiry and all of a sudden they sent it to us. So very disappointed in that because we just stressed the importance of good communication with us and the community. Find it very interesting seeing the one route. If you look at it, it's got that triangle bump out. At the route.
Yes.
You know why they did that, in my opinion?
It's at the top.
It's an aggregate operation. They're going around an aggregate operation. So I want OFA and WFA to weigh in. And I would pose these questions to the IESO. You're putting priority over aggregate operations to go around. A, what would be the cost to deviate around that property? And B, why are you not prioritizing going around prime agricultural farmland? The aggregate is more important to go around than the prime farmland. That's problematic. And I want those answers. I think council would support that. Also, I'm supportive of, I would be supportive of council taking a firm position even today. Put it along the 401. It's where it belongs. Request them to come back and answer that question. I think we should engage the MPP strongly. Say this is a major concern. We want this on this road. We want your support on it. Highlight the impacts of the prime agricultural farmland. Highlight that they're willing to go around an aggregate operation. The above. So very problematic. And yes, that northern route or that other one, that twinning, I think they referred to it. I believe I received an email, but it was so early that didn't really have any report and hadn't been on staff's radars.
With respect to a motion, it's interesting that if you type in on the internet transmission lines and hydro corridors, you'll find it comes right up and says transmission lines often run parallel to provincial highways. And it says hydro corridors along major highways are wide cleared utility rights of way for transmission, frequently co-located or paired parallel to major routes like 407 region to maximize land use efficiency. It's not like it's unknown.
You also raised a point about the aggregate. CBM recently purchased the property known as an application of Safark.
Yes.
That land is encumbered by hydro towers. So clearly having hydro towers on a property is not prohibitive to extraction because they purchased the property to do that. So that would be an argument that I would appreciate you take back to your folks as well. We'll likely raise it. And secondly, my family and I like to go to the Hamilton War Plane Museum. Actually, I can't spit out the name. Anyways, so just Google mapped it while you're discussing. At the end of their runway, within Google Maps says 681.25 meters is a main hydro corridor. So this is an international airport. that has a hydro corridor within 621 meters, and what they've done, I just remember this from driving by, John, is the wires are high, obviously, and then they lower them down, and they have markers.
Red balls.
Yeah, more than that, like they have the tubes that are, so the balls, the tubes, like it's quite bright. So there's obviously a way to have the wires, if they can have it near an international airport, I'm sure they can find a way to put it near Reeds.
With the cost they'd save on this shorter route compared to doubling the length, they could easily do that. Yes.
Those are my comments. We will do our best. It's unfortunate that this came out this way when we were trying to get ahead of it and have them do good communication with the community, and we didn't do that, so we'll try to hold that. Anyways, so we'll just receive yours for information. Are we gonna move it up so we can, yeah, why don't we do that? You can stay sitting there. So I'm gonna move a seconder to see that Councilor Hurst, Councilor Goya, all in favor. It's carried. And what's the report number for another?
10.4.
So with council's indulgence, we'll move up 10.4. It's a bit nuts. That. And I don't believe anybody's presenting that, so let's turn over to Councilor Spillis. Good, sir.
Okay, 10.4. So, my suggested motion is that the council receive, whereas Hydro One has proposed several alignments for its Wellington Waterloo Power Line project to the township of Puslinch, and whereas the essential impact to residents be minimized, and whereas not all potentially affected residents have been made aware of the alignment proposal, be resolved that Hydro One be requested to make a presentation to the September 16th council meeting, and he requested to review the notification to residents to ensure all residents within 500 meters be notified in accordance with the Hydro One protocol, and be requested to consider having a council representative on their advisory committee for this study, and that Hydro One be requested to include a presentation to the residents at the open house of September 17th. And I'd like to also add the motion that the Hydro One consider the Highway 401 corridor as a alternative to all the other proposed alignments.
As preferred.
I was just gonna say, put preferred in there.
Sure, let's make it preferred. It's a preferred alignment to all the other,
Yeah. Now, recognizing all the landowners along 401 are unaware of this and are likely looking at everybody else, as you said, pitting landowners against. So now you have a council that's gonna say, we want it on your property instead of their property over there. So I'm sure there's gonna be some people upset. But
The only thing I'd add to that is allowing for the 30 meters that MTO says they need. There's no reason why the actual towers themselves would need any private property. The other 100 meters that Hydro likes on either side of their towers so that they don't have interference would be on private, would be a right of way.
yeah,
But it would not be touched in any way, it would just be kept here. It's just, as I say, it's a defense for our council when it comes
I
to
appreciate it.
minimal impacts.
We're just saying, well, someone else's
Yes,
property when it-
yeah. Yeah, I know, that's,
it's part of the role. Okay, great. So you propose that, move that, take a seconder, please. Sorry. Nope. Mr. Baylor?
Second.
Good, discussion, please.
Just, because of everything moving so fast, I'm even questioning whether there is gonna be any sort of advisory committee happening. So it's great to say we want someone on the committee, but it also might be part of a whereas we didn't have the opportunity to have a committee, we weren't able to have a representative on it. I don't know if that's a technicality or something, but
I don't know if there even is one.
right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
But that's-
I'm assuming there is one, and given the fact that we're in a situation where we are, it's a lack of consultation on their part type of thing, I think I would just suggest we stay the course it is, not put any weasel words in there for them to get out of.
Well, you just ask staff to, they can ask tomorrow, today, doesn't matter, ask tomorrow, reach out to their contact, say, is there still a plan to create a TAC committee? And we'll have that answer, and then hopefully staff will have that answer for September 17th, and anything else they feel they want to get clarity on, so.
no, I think this is good. Thank you, Councillor Slows.
No amendments, it's good.
My only thought is based on what you've just said, the landowners along the 401 should, if that is a preferred route that we're suggesting, we should also be ensuring that they're notified to be offended of something.
I think the onus is on Hydro One, not us type of.
Agree 100%.
But no, we're saying, so you're saying maybe the township could be.
No, you gotta be careful.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Sorry.
No,
Hydro One would have to notify those.
Just as a community group, we're getting together on the 11th. We'll be delivering a letter to all of those landowners. So they'll have a chance to come together. And certainly at that time, we'll be presenting this option to them. So they'll have a chance to get feedback.
so it's.
Yeah.
No, I'm really disappointed. I'm one of the residents who's affected by towers. I got, within 500 meters, I have a tower in front of my home, and I got one to the, north, and I didn't get any notification. The only reason I found out is my next door neighbors called me up and said, "Did you get this letter?" And I said, "No." So then he provided me the information. I passed it on to, staff and council. This is very, slipshod type of approach.
My recollection is we really hammered the point about communication.
Absolutely.
It's on video, it was open session, right? So it wasn't, we shouldn't be talking about it. I don't like to, I'm gonna go back and look at that, because I'm sure we really pushed that point about communication, because we deal with it with aggregate. Right? And it's, you know, planning act stipulates 120 meters, but it affects more, so we knew that people needed to know. So it was just a little frustrating. Okay, this is a great start. Would you be willing to share that communication that you're going to send to those landowners, just so we know who you notified, and just help staff? So if we're advocating again for this preferred route along 401, who we're affecting in our application.
We're doing it through Help Protect Whistler. They're sending it out to their email list. And then we have 4 people covering the 4 regions who will be delivering by hand letters to as many of those are not on community mailboxes anyways, who can take a letter. So
yeah, and we'll find out about the TAC committee, because that was important, just to build the guidelines for it, your criteria for the impacts. We also have our trail system. I remember that part too, right? So
7 o'clock, September 11th, at sunrise. So there's lots of space.
all right, so then we were sending for, all in favor of that recommendation? Thank you. That's scary.
Thank you.
John. Enjoy the day.
You too.
Linda, come on down. See you.
Good morning.
Hey.
Nice to see you too. What's that?
It's a busy day.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind, because I like, it's always a good learning opportunity and to consider.
So yeah, whenever you're ready.
It's good. Well, thank you, Mayor Sealy and members of council. So you have before me my the report, our annual report on the status of the emergency management program for 2026. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I will just highlight a few things. So we do the report to council because there are legislative requirements that the township must complete on an annual basis, and they are laid out in the report. As you'll note from the first item, the program committee, all municipalities are required to appoint a program committee, and that program committee is responsible for developing and implementing the emergency management program for the township. And they met on March 11th to review these items, and a copy of the minutes is attached with your report. Part of that is the hazard identification and risk assessment, which we do a major analysis of. We usually review that in depth every 5 years, but then we review it with the program committee on an annual basis, and no changes were noted. We reviewed the plan with the committee. There were no major changes noted. I will note, I think an information report came to council back some time ago about Bill 25, which is the Emergency Management Modernization Act, which was to make several changes to the legislation. Some of that included changes for municipalities. The bill has been given royal assent, but the portions that apply to municipalities are not in full force and effect yet. So while we feel there may be some changes needed to the emergency response plan, we haven't done those at this time, but we'll bring that forward to committee council when they're in full force and effect. We did make one change to the plan, and you'll note I'm referring to it now as the emergency management plan. That's the wording that the province is going for now. They don't want emergency response plan, they want emergency management plan. So we've changed that accordingly in the plan. And we can do that without council's approval. We can make edits that are from a provincially and whatnot, or a contextual change that affects the whole plan. So we did it on that basis. Training is required specifically for members. There is specific prescribed training requirements for members of your emergency control group or your emergency response group. They met on June 24th to do the training as well as to run their exercise. And then we did some additional training with other staff on August 13th. You'll also note at the bottom of that page that there's 1 to 4. We always try to enhance our training programs beyond that, not just for members of the control group, but for staff. And those are some dates there. We ran the emergency exercises noted on June 24th. Good exercise, I think. And it was good from the perspective of what they're to do. They set out objectives and we're to learn things, and we did learn things. And I've noted what our objectives are and how those were fulfilled. Just a couple of things that I will note. There was discussion, and I think this is important for council to know as well. There was discussion on additional staff resources or resources. We have a number of mutual assistance agreements at the county that if we were in an emergency response, the CAOs at the county levels could initiate resource response if they needed to assist one another. We also have one that we did back in 2009 with City of Guelph, County Wellington, and then all the member municipalities. So township is within that MMA. So we always did kind of look at training to be consistent across the county, so that if there was a need to pull staff in from other areas to supplement your resources, you can implement those agreements. So I just wanted to highlight that for council. The other one is the D4H software, which we implemented in 24. And I think it's like anything, it's just ongoing training and continued exercise use on it. And we will try to endeavor to do that with staff. We talked about the mapping functionality of it, and we do have our GIS. It's called the COP. It's the county GIS system, which we can use for situational awareness. It also contains our critical infrastructure, which I'll talk about in a minute. But we have that resource, and the technicians can also assist either from home or at the time of emergency at the township. Public education, going out and talking to residents and having their understanding of their kind of their own first responder and what they can do to help themselves. And we have attended 3 different sessions so far, one on April 25th at Mini Lakes, which was the wellness event, the Canada Day Pancake Breakfast on July 1st, and Puslinch Fire Community Open House on July 11th. And I'll also note, it's not in the report, but I am in discussions with Beth at Mini Lakes about doing a presentation just with them and because there is a lot of seniors for them sometime this fall. So I hope to get that done as well too. And then there's others in there as well. So we've covered off, I think, our pub ed for 2026. And the last one I noted is critical infrastructure. That's just identifying things within the municipality, and those may be municipal, county, provincial, federal, that are important, identifying their location, who owns them, how we get in contact with them, and a little bit about priorities. So we kind of rate them from 1 to 4, 1 being our highest, 4 being our lowest, not meaning that the 4 is not important, but it's which ones should we be bringing back online. So we've got that done as well, and we review that, and we're trying to maintain that and get that up to date with staff in the township this year as well too. So, and other than that, unless there's any questions, those are the requirements, and that's how we've fulfilled them for 2026.
Great, thanks, Linda. Mr. Bailey, you get it?
Great. Just a comment, it's been really nice to see the booth set up at the community events, and I don't know if it's there's more of that happening because we now have our, the showcase, yeah. So there's more opportunity to be there but anyway, it's been really great having, emergency management at these events locally. Just a question, when you were saying that, do you have any sort of curriculum that you bring into the schools, to tap into the youth in the community?
That's one we've tried for many years, but there is a process,
Yeah.
and it's very, very challenging, but we keep trying, and we know others that have been successful at different boards, so we've been trying to implement that, but
Yeah.
it is something we're very aware of.
Barriers just getting into the system.
Yeah.
School system.
You have to have the curriculum, the time, and like, how does it fit into the curriculum and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Maybe I can have you come present at the youth committee at
Oh,
least as
sure.
a start. So
Sure.
yeah, that might be
Yeah.
something I can reach out to.
Sure.
So great. Thank you.
Councillor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks. A couple very brief comments. Yeah, it's actually a really good read. I appreciate the work that went into that. It was very thorough. Four things for me, like, I think for this municipality, having the ability to share services across multiple jurisdictions is phenomenal. That results in consistency. You don't have the same staff doing the same thing in multiple jurisdictions, which keeps the FTEs down and everything along that. I'm curious. And it was interesting to see each of the monthly kind of activities that take place. And I think the one that occurred to me when I was going through it is we have the 401 corridor running through our municipality. That's going to be a little bit different than the other regions within the county. That noted, I'm curious if there's any learnings for, say, 2027 or onward from other jurisdictions that have the 401 running through their municipality from your colleagues in other counties as to some of the preparedness activities that they've done, that could maybe be incorporated into future planning that's relevant to our, like, again, if you're up in like Harrison, it's probably not relevant about the 401, but it is here. So that was just a quick comment there. And I think the other one is maybe for staff, and I appreciate now, Courtney, you and your team are putting in the strategic priorities for each of the pieces. Maybe one that I'm thinking in the future, because we did get some grant funding for the generator and the PCC that was part of this emergency preparedness, or part of the narrative that went into that. Thinking to the future, are there any other strategic investments that the municipality can make in support of emergency preparedness? But that probably starts with a gap assessment. Say, what do we need versus what we have, and where are the gaps? But that to me is like more thoughtful, long-term strategic planning. But I'll leave that with you. Like, I don't need an answer today, but just like, I think there's lots of good co-funding opportunities of the province for those type of things that I'm sure other municipalities have taken advantage of. So just some quick comments. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Linda.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. The emergency exercise, I was able to participate. It's always very informative, very helpful. We hope, of course, we don't have to use it, but because we don't use it, it is important to continue to do the training, because we're all trying to figure out, how do we log into this again? And so it's important to do those things, and appreciate the work that goes into preparing that and walking them through it.
Pleasure seeing you again. Question I think it's a question for staff, with respect to this extra staff person, it says agreement could be implemented during response of staff support for township EOC is needed. So is that something you would be initiating, Courtney, or that's something that they should be initiating? Because it seems like it's an item to be addressed, but nobody seems to be picking up on it.
So through the chair, my recollection of this discussion at the last training was that you have different individuals in charge of different aspects of in the OC, and having scribes and things like that, because there is quite a bit of documentation that's required. That's where we felt the gap was. So I think my understanding was we could tap into the county staff if we needed a scribe, or to draw on someone with that expertise, or across other lower tier municipalities. There's a lot of trained individuals across the lower tiers where we don't necessarily need to train more of our staff, especially if we don't have the task.
So is there a protocol that when something does happen, you can call up, the other areas that you mentioned and say, can we have a scribe?
So through the chair, I think we would work directly with the county on trying to organize that. If we were to call the county in and activate the EOC, if, so there's a process that we discussed. Now, I don't know how it's gonna fit into our actual, protocols or SOPs, but I know that that was discussed.
So, Mayor Sealy, through you, so that's why I raised the issue of the mutual assistance agreement, so definitely county, and that's having the CMC as county employee, but also the CMC for the lower tiers. That county flow of staff resources and support is usually, it happens, right? Call up the CAO and it happens. If we're drawing from other member municipalities, that usually happens very easily as well. But we do have this mutual assistance agreement that if you wanted to formalize it or it needed to be formalized, then it's a process between the two CAOs just talking to one another and saying we want to implement it. I would need some scribes. How many? And then they could say, yes, we could loan you 2 or 3 for now or whatever.
Which I'm hearing from you, Courtney, there's no issue, it's a matter of just a phone call.
Yes, so
I think it's there already.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation and always organizing our practice day. What I'll say is, well, there may be new members of council coming on and there's legislative training required. There's some that's optional. I would suggest building a schedule and getting it into a calendar. So if we have new members, that it's in there and it gets done because it's quite a bit. So versus just querying new people, trying to do it. If it's already built and said it's only to attend, that would be great. So it's, go ahead.
I have one more, just you got me thinking about emergency preparedness. Just due to the livestock density within Wellington County, I think, and I was just going through your list of activities, and this is top of mind because we had a neighbor from my parents' farm that had barn fires and took on a bunch of cattle in our barns, and it's emergency preparedness around a barn fire or a grain elevator, trapit or anything. And there's lots of really good materials out there, but just some content that maybe, given the breadth of agriculture within the county, that might be something that you may want to consider in the future. I know, like in this municipality, I think we had a chicken barn burn 3 years ago on County Road 32. I don't believe there was any animals in it, but it's a combination of animal welfare, emergency preparedness, and everything that goes along with that. So I'll leave that with you. That was just another one that popped in my mind. So thank you.
Who's receiving that information?
There is it's that we accept the annual report of the township's emergency management focus for 2026.
Okay. It's carried. Thanks for the.
Thank you. Thank you again. Nice to see everyone.
See you. Thank
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your summer. Right, 948. 7 years going schedule. It's Julie. From PG. Oh, sorry, my cheat sheet says 948.
I know, me too, but.
What number is it? No, it's not that one.
47? 947?
We're just on 947.
We're on 946. Cheat sheet.
947.
947. Yeah. Cheat sheets. All right, there he is. Jeremy, can you hear us?
Yep, I could hear you guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jeremy Train from MPG Planning Solutions. We are the township planning consultant for the zoning bylaw amendment application to remove the holding provisions at the property known as Park Lot 26 and 27, concession 7. It is in my opinion that the application is consistent with the PPS, confirmed with the County of Wellington official plan, and has met the requirements for the removal of the holding provisions. It is therefore recommended to Council to approve the zoning bylaw amendment applications as outlined in bylaw 2026-055. Thank you.
Great. Any questions?
I do have a question. So I just have a question, Jeremy, I think it says, I've written down page 5, I was gonna try to find it. It says development shall not be permitted until an appropriate development agreement has been entered into covering such matters as street improvements and related financial contributions. So I guess my question is just, I don't typically see the development agreement, but what sort of street improvements are we looking at in the agreement?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bailey. So the development agreement for this particular property looks at a left turn lane to provide access to the development, as well as some additional road widening that would be required to facilitate that construction of the left turn lane.
Okay, so it's a left turn lane heading west before the curve. Is that right?
I believe so. Is to facilitate that development in the northern portion of the property. They are also currently going through a site plan control application as well to regulate that access. So staff is working with the applicant in terms of determining where would be the appropriate locations. But regardless of where that location of the driveway would be, a left turn lane would be needed to facilitate that development.
Great, thanks for that.
Councilor Hurst?
No questions.
Ms. Greta?
No, I have no question.
Split.
I'm good as well.
Okay. You want to have Justine read the recommendation or?
If it's as presented, then it's
We're good.
included in your materials. Yes.
Presented, Katie Luber, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey, in favor. That's carried. Thank you, Jeremy. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Back to original order of business, we're on to consent agenda items. Now, Ms. Bredesen, read the recommendation, please.
That the consent agenda items to the August 2026 council meeting be received.
We'll move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, and the items please forward. Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, sorry, my notes are not, I think, 6.10, 11, and 12 are all the same topic. So those 3. And that's all.
Okay, Councilor Hurst.
Nothing to add. The ones I'd flagged were in the Q&A.
No, I'm good.
6.17.
All right, so we'll proceed the balance of those, please. All in favor? Carry. Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. Did I send, I think I sent something through in the Q&A, and there was going to be a staff was going to prepare a motion on the, it's regarding the OPP detachment report from Huron.
So it's North
Grenville, Merrick Wolford OPP detachment from May 7th is the original report. And my understanding is that they're looking to the province for support, whether it's financial, for municipalities. My understanding is that had the speed radar that now don't, and they're not the upper tier. So it's looking for support for all municipalities, but especially those that now don't have that capability.
Do you have the staff recommendation?
Yes, so through the chair, just recommending to receive all 3 of those at once and that staff prepare a support resolution accordingly.
Okay. So can we move for that, please? Councilor Bailey, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Hurst,
Nothing to add.
Perfect.
okay, all in favor? Those 3. It's carried. 617. Councilor Spillis.
Yes, there's a motion in the capital newsletter that's that I'd like to support, and it's to do with blending under the Aggregate Resources Act, processing blended resources act. We have that concern in our township whereby gravel pit operators from other municipalities are coming in and bringing in material to be processed on our within the gravel pits within our township, and that's causing a lot of extra traffic, a lot of unnecessary deterioration of our roadway type of thing, and there's no compensation allowed for that. So I would like to put forward the motion as presented in newsletter and be amended to include Bushland in the insert municipality's name.
Do you want to read the whole thing or?
Sorry.
Just link it,
It's-
so we'll just as presented and as described by Council Lewis, comfortable with that? So let's move by Council Lewis. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah.
Questions or comments? Councilor Bailey?
No, I as well was going to bring that forward, so thanks to Councillor Sepulveda for flagging that.
Supportive. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, I'm good with it. Also, really good job on the newsletter. That's great.
Team, Alyssa, you're doing a wonderful job. All right, all in favor? It's carried. Let's see, where are we breaking?
Or whenever.
Public meeting, September 16th, 2026 at 6:30 PM. Public information meeting held in person at the municipal office, 7404 Wellington Road 34. And by electronic participation through Zoom regarding 2027 user fees and charges bylaw. September 16th, 2026 at 7:30 PM. Public open house held in person at the Puslinch Community Center, 23 Brock Road South regarding recreation and parks master plan.
Sir, a question. We have public meetings that relate to us specifically, but we know that there's a public meeting or information center associated with the hydro transmission lines we discussed. Is that somehow conveyed on our website?
So through the chair, it's not currently, but we can push that out. We can put it on our calendar. I don't know if it is, maybe it is somewhere, but we can certainly do that.
Anything else? All right, first report 921. Get the right page here. That's Mary.
Good morning, Council. So this report here is the proposed cost of living adjustment report. It's an annual report that kicks off some of our operating budget deliberations. And the recommendation in the report is in accordance with the township's budget development and control policy. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions regarding this annual report that's provided.
Recommendations in the package, can you move it, please? Suppose, Councillor Hurst, any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks. Lisa Tsang, you're next on 9.2.2.
Yes, Council. So this is a quarterly report that's provided to Council. It's just a summary of our second quarter financials. It's also discussed collaboratively with the senior leadership team, but I'd be happy to answer any of Council's questions.
All right, recommendations in the package, can I move, please? Suppose, Councillor Goida, thank you. Okay, questions?
For me?
Sorry, yourselves.
Nope.
Suppose.
No, I'm supportive of deleting the third quarter financial report because we do have a lot of that information provided with both of the budgeting.
Sounds good. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Let's take a 5-minute break. Need a quick break for it. What we'll deal with is 9.3.1. I believe that's you. Sorry, Francis.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So just a brief overview. This is recommended amendment to our site alteration bylaw. So the proposed amendments include new permit type for a commercial fill permit. So this is to address what we're seeing coming through with applications. So it is, the first draft is included for council with a track change, just the red line that you'll see attached to the report. It does include some financial implications. Staff were able to do a fairly thorough review of what other municipalities are charging for commercial fill operations. So again, it's significantly more than what we're charging for non-commercial alterations if somebody's doing work that doesn't have that commercial component to it. Again, this is a first draft. We do plan on bringing back a second draft. It is going through a legal review as well as a technical review right now. So we'll have those comments to provide back to council with the second draft, as well as any comments that we get today. If there's recommendations or feedback, we can incorporate those. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Brotherson, can you read this recommendation, please?
Report CAO 2026-008 entitled Site Alteration Bylaw Proposed Amendments to be received, and that council directs staff to incorporate council's feedback in addition to legal review and technical feedback into the next draft of the bylaw. And that council directs staff to incorporate the user fees and charges outlined into the report to the township's user fees and charges bylaw as presented section.
Thank you. Over, please. Mr. Bailey, Councillor Hurst, any questions? Councillor Hurst, or sorry, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm really happy to see this addition to the existing bylaw. I think it's an issue in the township, and I'm happy to see that staff's kind of responding to what we're seeing. I did put something in the Q&A, but I just wanted to highlight it. My comment was in respect to the volume charge. And what I was suggesting is perhaps I feel like the amount needs to reflect something, say concrete with an application. So the suggested was $2 cubic meter, I believe, in the bylaw. So I was just wondering if there was a way to actually increase that a little bit more by somehow linking it to distance that the trucks are traveling on our roads. And that way the charge is being linked to the wear and tear on our roads. So that way you can sort of justify why we're changing the population. So I just wanted to leave that with staff, that maybe they can come up with some sort of calculation based on the haul route distance, or based on if it's a really large commercial fill where fill's coming in from all different places and the haul route changes, that maybe then there's a minimum sort of higher volume surcharge based on the trucks coming across the township.
Let's take that
And
back.
yes, so through Mr. Chair, we will take that back and look at it. The one item here, just the last part of the resolution where incorporating this into the user fees and charges bylaw. So likely we're not going to be able to do that, which is not an issue. It will mean that the user fees for commercial site alteration will exist in that bylaw rather than user fees and charges, just with the timing of when we're bringing the user fees and charges bylaw forward. And then wherever we land on that, it would be incorporated in the next year. So for 2028, but it would exist in the bylaw for now.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, thank you. I'm supportive. Maybe for really brief comments. I appreciate you doing the other jurisdictional analysis. I think that adds a lot of weight to what is being proposed. Courtney, can you share just some high level timelines to completion here, just to get me like a flavor, right? So this is your first crack at it. We'll see it a few more times. Like, is this something by end of year, winter 2027, next summer type of thing? Like, I'm just curious. Next, like 2 meetings from now type of thing.
Yeah, so through the chair, we have most of the feedback already. We're working through it. So I'm not sure if we'll see the next draft on the 16th, but certainly the October meeting. We are not bound to any number of readings. So it depends on how if council feels everything's been addressed, you could pass the bylaw at the next meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. That's helpful. I was just curious to get a handle on that. And then my understanding would be user fees such as this are at the discretion of the township. There's no provincial jurisdiction that would dictate this at this time. Am I correct in that understanding?
So through the chair, yes, in that we don't have to have another approval authority. However, the municipalities are not able to, the fees that they set have to align with the actual resources and services that are being rendered. So user fees and charges are not intended to sort of create additional revenue. They're to, whether most of the time user fees are subsidized by the taxpayer. We try our best to make it a user pay system where they're paying for the services they receive, but not anymore. So in this case, we do have to be cognizant when we're charging a per cubic meter, so a volume surcharge. Because again, that's very hard to quantify. What is the dollar value of wear and tear on any section of road? So the township typically is conservative with what we charge. You can see some of our comparators are charging more than double what we're proposing. So it's a say no, we don't need any authority, but we have to be able to have it defensible.
Thank you. That was, you just got into my third point. It's just that analysis of like what the real cost is. And so maybe my request would be as a future discussion at some point of like some analysis with probably the roads team, just to say like, here's kind of what we think it is. It's never gonna be perfect. Sometimes the truck's gonna be known for 5 kilometers, it might be 35 kilometers. You might have to just dollar cost average it out for administration, but I'm supportive. That's just kind of where my head is. It's just to better understand and make that defensible. Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I am supportive and I don't have any additional comments.
Let's want to talk about the $2 versus the $5 other municipalities are charging. Could you have a discussion with these other municipalities where they're charging $5 and what the rationale is? So I'd be curious to understand the higher cost that they're charging and see them being any more wear and tear on their roads as our roads type of thing. And I'm all for upping it to discourage commercial endeavors within Whistler. So if we can up it legitimately based on the logic they provided in their municipalities, I'm all for it. The second thing is, we're talking about commercial alteration means there's an item here that talks about where a change in grade is supposed to be greater than 3 meters above or below the existing grade. You treat that as a commercial fill. As opposed to somebody claiming it's a best farm practices. Is that something that might be challenged in the future? In other words, maybe we shouldn't put that in there because it could be easily challenged. It's going to protect the process and eating up staff time to discuss that. So that's a comment I'm making for you to consider. I don't think I need an answer here, but that's something to consider.
Good. Great. And no comments. I'm supportive of it. It's a great bylaw. It's working well. The recommendations in the.
So through the chair, the recommendations in the report, but I am striking out the last line where we incorporate the fees into the user fees and charges bylaw because council would like to see some further analysis on that. So we'll take that out of it. And so it really is to receive the report and that will incorporate everyone's feedback and bring me back another draft.
I'd like to see it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
We only one meeting.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was a.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking at all.
Okay, through the chair, we will do our best to bring it back. I think it's September 16th.
Do we have another, what's the next meeting after that?
It's in October.
Yeah, well, I know that, but what date in October?
7th.
Okay, so latest 7th. All in favor? Scared? Fine. 942. Let's catch up the wrong ones. Yeah, we need a 4-5 for robots. Yeah, 942 is Monica.
Yes, good morning again, council.
Good morning. Nice to see you again. Floor is yours.
The purpose of this report is to seek council's direction to deem the zoning bylaw amendment application for the property municipally known as 4078 Highway 6 complete. This is a procedural step which will allow township staff and consultants to begin their technical review of the application. Thanks, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation of the report? Councilor Blues, Councilor Goida, any questions? Councilor Bailey? Zerst?
No.
No. No. Okay, all in favor? This carried. Who's 943? Monica again.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek council's direction to deem the zoning bylaw amendment application for the property municipally known as 7248 Gore Road, or otherwise known as Emerald Lake, complete. This is a procedural step which will allow township staff and consultants to begin their technical review of the application. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we move on a seconder for that, please. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hurst, any questions or comments? No? All in favor? It's carried.
Thank you.
9-4.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction to amend the township's entrance permit bylaw to permit secondary residential entrances for properties with a corner lot, and this would be at the discretion of our Director of Public Works. Further, we're also proposing an amendment to update the language regarding site distance requirements to align with the current Transportation Association of Canada Geometric Design Guide for Canadian roads, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, recommendations in the report. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Spillis, any questions?
That's a question. My comments in the were related to what are the actual requirements that the TAC document states in terms of sightlines, what are the distances, that sort of thing. I'm okay with the way it's written, but you read the bylaw, that doesn't give any information in terms of the actual parameters that somebody has to adhere to before they consider a driveway onto their property.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. So staff deliberately didn't include the TAC requirements in the bylaw. And this was important so that it's the current guidance from TAC that would apply going forward, and then the bylaw would have to be updated as guidance changes are made. This was recommended by our traffic consultant. With that being said, there is an internal standard for determining site distances for residential driveways that has been developed in coordination with our traffic consultant. And if there's any driveways that don't meet that site distance, then staff will engage with the appropriate consultant at that point in time. And that's how staff are intending.
Okay, so there's an internal measurement available. Okay, that's fine. I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Good. No, all in favor? It's carried. 9-4-5, that's you, let's start us again.
Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with the proposed 2027 council committee meeting schedule. This schedule is drafted in accordance with the township's procedural bylaw as well as the committee's terms of references. And I just would note that the budget meeting schedule for 2027 is condensed due to the election, so you're seeing it pushed later this year, and the meetings are closer together, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we go to seconder for that, please, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Spillis, any questions or comments? Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, just a question. This is the second, this will be, so 2027 will be the second year in a row that our council meetings conflict with the Wellington Safe Communities Committee. So as the rep for that, I have not been able to attend any of the meetings, and I had to step back as being co-chair because of that. So the Safe Communities meetings are statutory, and we do require a representative from Puslinch to attend them. So in chatting with staff, the recommendation or the suggestion is that perhaps we can consider recruiting from either our committees, so someone that already is on our committees, or I do have resident participants from the Puslinch Safe Communities group, and potentially we could be trying to get them to attend on our behalf. But what I'm suggesting is that perhaps we consider a monetary consideration for those that aren't on council to go, whether it's just through mileage or a per diem or something like that. So that would impact budget.
So staff can bring that back during budget process.
So through the chair, yes, and I think we are going to confirm with the committee that a citizen member is allowed.
Right.
And the other piece was just in terms of accessibility.
And I did ask about that. So yeah, the question came up is can the member attend virtually? And right now, Safe Communities has a sort of a loose policy that if the weather's bad, they will maybe shift to a virtual, but as of now, that's not an option. But I have reached out and mentioned the conflict with the schedule, have asked for virtual attendance, and I didn't ask about the citizen appointee, but I was wondering if they would shift their schedule meetings to Thursdays perhaps, or be able to be a little bit flexible. She said she'd bring it back to the leadership team for that.
Can staff represent us there? Worst case scenario, do we assign a staff member as?
The issue.
Through the chair, we can, it's quite frequent meetings that they have at least 6 per year.
At least.
At least.
I think it's 8, yeah.
And the travel, so we would be sort of, assigning that to a staff member, which would be a capacity issue like.
Well, I think we should ask for consideration that if we have to assign a staff member because of schedule conflict, that staff member will be permitted to attend virtually.
Yeah.
If they want the statutory attendance, here's what we can do because one of us has to move our schedules.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's just keep that in your mind. But yes, having them drive back and forth from this good deal.
Motion or can just take that back?
I do have it listed in a motion, so it really is to be received and then the meeting schedule being adopted as presented. And that council directs staff to amend its process to be able to appoint a representative to the Safe Communities Committee to allow for a citizen appointment, again, subject to knowing that that's okay. As the dates for those meetings conflict with council meeting dates, and the council directs staff to include a per diem for meeting attendance should we permit the appointment of a citizen member, and that council further requests that virtual attendance be permitted.
Moved by Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hurst. Any other questions or comments? Hurst?
No.
All in favor? It's carried. Good. Great. Noise bylaw exemption, 45911 from 32.
Through the chair, this report is to request a noise bylaw exemption for the property 4591 Wellington Road 32. And staff recommend approval of this exemption request for an event held on Sunday, September 6th.
You move for that, please. The schools, Councillor Bailey, thank you. Any questions or comments? No. All good. All in favor? That's carried. Lastly, went through.
Question.
We did that one. That's the holding removal.
So this is the other one. This is that,
There was 2.
that's the one on concession road 7.
No, it's
There's only one.
sorry, one. Why did we move? Why did I jump ahead to that one? Was I just saw on the page?
Well, it's just triangular part here.
Oh. Yeah, that's the Jeremy Tran one.
Okay, I thought it was the other one. Okay, sorry.
It's all good. Okay. So 951, I guess that would be Andrew. This is the bounce around.
Sorry.
951 building report.
Good morning, council.
Morning, Andrew. Floor is yours when you're ready.
All right. Through the chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update of the activities of the building department for the second quarter of 2026. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And mover seconder for receiving the report, Councillor Hurst. I suppose any questions for CBO? No. All in favor? It's carried. Short and sweet. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Is 10.2.
Yes.
So this is just for information. Do you want to speak to it? Ms. Hunt?
Yes, so this is the ERO related to the consultation that's being done for the amalgamation of the conservation authorities from local conservation authorities to regional conservation authorities. In addition, there is a slide deck that was provided, which includes the mapping for the new RCAs as well as the number of seats on the new RCA boards that each upper tier or single tier municipality is going to have in terms of representation. There is a proposed motion that was included in the agenda package that was done in consultation with one of our partners, so the Hamilton Conservation Authority. It was a follow-up from a meeting with them, getting their thoughts on where this governance sort of framework is headed. So I know there's one addition that a counselor has made to the resolution, but happy to answer any questions.
Do you want to read out the addition? Want to read it?
Yeah, I was trying to get on my computer, it locked me up, so.
I have to give you the updated one.
Sure, go ahead.
So the addition is, whereas the County of Wellington is currently represented by 3 members serving on the GRCA board and representing 7 lower tier municipalities with diverse needs. And whereas its population count for the New Eastern Lake Erie RCA area is around 70,000 or 4.8%. And whereas its representation on the new Eastern Lake Erie RCA board will only be 1 member. And whereas a municipality of 1,000 or less than 1% will also have a representation of 1 member on the new RCA board. Be it resolved that the province be requested to review its eligibility criteria to make it more equitable for the County of Wellington representation on the new RCA board and other municipalities in similar circumstance.
Moved.
Yes.
Wait a second, Councillor Hurst. All right, any questions or discussion? No, all in favor? I almost asked you to read that, Justine, because it's 2 pages long.
I just have a follow-up question. I saw in the correspondence, you had sent from GRCA last night. It mentions using percent of population versus percent of geographic area. And so I guess my general question would be, I don't know what that difference would be, and it would be interesting to just know, how that would change the
So my
population.
understanding of it is they use the population percentage for weighted voting when it comes to budgetary implications. Because they're gonna be the most people that pay. And as the rural community may have a very large geographic area that has significant importance to wetlands, but their population number would be down. So for all other votes, the weight is on the geographic area, or at least it's 1 for 1. But the budget, this is my understanding, this is all draft. But the budget component, because Hamilton's in a situation where I believe they have a smaller geographic area, but a very large population there, and they pay into one of the CAs substantially. So they want the weighted vote of that influence and accountability for those implications to their taxpayers. So, okay. But staff can definitely reach out and get probably a better understanding.
Through the chair, that's my understanding too, in conversation with the CAs. Currently, it's done by population, and that makes sense for a lot of reasons because that's your tax base. So that's the way they're doing it with the weighted voting as it relates to budget items.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense when you're dealing with budget. It doesn't make sense if you're dealing with the actual wetland concern that the conservation authority should be putting weight on.
Which I think is balanced more, because then, so in a budget vote, that 1 vote from, I'll just pick on Hamilton, their vote carries, say, I'll make up a number, 27%. Is a value to getting to 100% total. If it were, say, any other decision, their 1 vote equates to like 1/23 of the vote. I don't know if I explained that well, but so during budget, they have more influence because they have higher population, more people paying. During other organizational decisions, they would basically be, I think everybody would be equal.
One seat counts for
Just
1
1
vote.
vote. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's clear as mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, and we've been going back and forth with the ERCA tweaking this. Trying to find the right number for a number of seats and trying to get to an odd number, not an even number, and it's been a lot of discussions. Okay, so do we have that recommendation? It was already passed and she did the follow up, didn't she?
Yeah.
Did we vote on it?
Yeah.
10.3, is that just receive that for information?
So it's to receive for information, and it's also just to receive direction from council to have the environmental assessment reviewed by the township's hydrogeologist for comment.
Okay, so may I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Hurst, Councillor Phillips, some questions or comments on this? 10.3. Good. Okay. Right page, okay, all in favor? Carried. Council reports, shall we keep on trucking along? We're only gonna close eventually, right? And then with the closed and then. Mayor's updates. Well, let's start with council members, what are you gonna follow, setting council member updates? Mr. Dayton.
Where have I been the last month?
What's coming up? We got the fall fair, but we have another meeting between now and then.
You captured under announcements too.
Okay, we'll do it then. For AMO, their advocacy for the bypass and traffic, as we mentioned, the delegation. I mean, we met with MECP and it was interesting. The minister walked in, we had originally had a PA and then he walked in and joined us for the meeting. I'm not sure if he accidentally came in and then was one of those awkward moments where do I leave or do I stay? But either way, we got PA and the minister at the same time. He actually sent a note, generic note of thanking us for our delegation, but it went well. I thought that it was one of the most engaged delegations was the MECP one, which was refreshing. Our MMAH delegation was not engaging, and we asked about OPA 131, which includes the severance date change, employment land study, and the Hamlet boundary expansion. Really didn't give an indication of timeline of when that would be coming, but it was on
his desk.
It's on his desk is what he said. I think is his name. So I'm patiently waiting for that because I'll open up a lot of opportunity for residents to get that severance. What else did they say? They didn't say a whole lot in the MMAH.
No, through the chair, the MECP did mention, because we were, one of the items we talked about was the jurisdiction. When you have the MECP with fill importation and then the MNR, if there's fill importation happening on an aggregate site. And that the MECP was looking for ways to streamline enforcement to perhaps pass some of that enforcement on to the MNR. So Mayor Sealy was quite adamant that that's not what we would want to see, but it was a conversation and we did get a good contact, staff contacted that.
Yeah, they dropped that on us. We had no inclination and they said they're looking to streamline it. And as the CEO indicated, my first comments were that the general's report indicated MNR was having difficulty enforcing, aggregate operations, and to delegate this authority to MNR. I felt that the jurisdiction should stay with the experts, which is MECP. Again, we just kind of landed on our lap. It's caught us off guard, so we got that contact. We'll stay tuned, and maybe there's some more advocacy. What else were we were discussing? Because the PA, he seemed quite knowledgeable. I think he had done his homework.
So through the chair, we had wanted fill importation to be included under the Clean Water Act as a prescribed threat. That was something council we had talked about. That seemed like it wasn't really something they were looking to consider. Because they feel that the OREGs for 0619 do an adequate job of that. So I think we got a little bit out of the MECP delegation, just that they're willing to work with us on how we overcome this sort of jurisdictional gap, I suppose, between the two agencies. But other than that, they also were looking at our study for the multi-penetrating.
Oh, that's right.
Aquifer wells, yeah.
Because we mentioned it could either be in the building code or they could adopt a regulation, and just highlight that, that our hydrogeologist has a concern around it, and they were attentive, I thought. So again, whether I said we either need your help to advocate or support for a building code change, or you can build a reg that says, in the rural, that you require these to be encased. So, we'll stay tuned. I did take the opportunity during the photo op. Mr. McCarthy was standing beside me, and I thanked him for taking the GRCA comments into consideration for the amalgamation, because the first iteration we didn't follow source water boundaries, and the Hussein and the group organizing this amalgamation did take a lot of the GRCA comments and implement them. I believe they respect the GRCA, so Ed Sam is now
Project manager.
project manager for the amalgamation, CEO of GRCA, so just a little side note, I just thanked him and I think he was appreciative of that. Anyways, it was good, but stay tuned for the OPA 131. All right, so that was under Mayor.
Tackle meeting.
Oh, town meeting was very well attended. We had the Brock University, as council's aware, present to members. Rehabilitation is hot topic. And they did a good job, and one item that came out of that was the team at Brock indicated that once their study and report and or recommendations are completed, the intent is that it's OMAF now, not OMAF-RA, it's OMAF. Will utilize those proposed guidelines as their official comments for aggregate applications. This is all about the water table stuff. That's the first I had heard that, because I wasn't sure, you know, we're doing all this work and these recommendation and guidelines, and what I've been preaching at the meetings is that we need to buy in from MNR, because if we have all these guidelines and MNR doesn't utilize them or implement them, then it's all for naught. That's when, you know, I believe it was Amy stated that no, the intent is that OMAF will, sorry, I'm screwing up, I don't know what the acronym is, but OMAFA, it's just not the R there, it's going, OMAFA will adopt them, which is hopefully transpires. So it's been a lot of work, and so it was good. It was, yeah, a lot of people in the room, and well attended, which was great. Thanks to the team for putting that all together, and we had a little technical issues, but we were able to resolve that pretty quick. And
when those get finalized, let me know. I have regular meetings, day job stuff with the senior team at OMAFA, and I'm happy to give a little nudge to say, like, let's see some public acknowledgement of this. So,
yeah, and to be truthful, I haven't seen even a draft yet. We're working through that process, but I have no idea where these guidelines are going to land. But you know, we've seen it with applications to bring in fill to improve the farmland of a former aggregate pit that met the rehab plan for agriculture, but then you hear the argument that it isn't good enough. So I'm hoping they're gonna fix that.
you do one other angle. Ontario Federation of Agriculture does policy days periodically. I know I've presented up, get day job stuff, but that might be a good angle to have Brock University present.
Can you email me that?
Yeah.
Just so then I can flip it to the team. Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Yeah, so although I thought it was pretty good conference, so. Great. Thank you, we were excited to receive that wonderful update. Councillor Hurst, Councillor Bailey, all in favor? Carried. Councillor updates. Anyone from the money? Seeing none. Should we review the bylaws before we get?
That the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2026-054 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 032/2020 being a bylaw to regulate the installation, construction, alteration, or change in use of any private entranceway that permits access to township road allowance, and bylaw 2026-055 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 023-18 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the township of Westland.
Okay, move for that, please. Councillor Hurst, those favor? It's carried. Announcements. Anyone? Paul Bear. That's the weekend after Labor Day. Starts Friday night, Friday, Saturday. The Agricultural Society's been working diligently, and I believe partnering with the township, so it's looks like it's gonna be.
And there's early bird tickets, gets that will bring the cost down a little bit.
So buy your early bird tickets. Oh, and I also want to congratulate Deputy Chief Aaron Ferracholi on his promotion to permanent. He was doing an interim role for us, so that's great that he's accepted that position. And we look forward to working with him in the future. So congratulations from council and to Aaron. Anyways, the other announcements. Oh, the Flamborough Orthodox Fastball League is hosting their annual tournament in Puslinch this year, and it's the weekend of the fall fair.
Yeah.
So it'll be at the other baseball diamonds, if you're interested in coming out and seeing some old men swing a wood bat and trip and fall and play some sort of iteration of baseball. There will be lots of it happening along with the ball there. Sweet. After that, we're going into close, right? So we might as well break or.
Old Morston.
It's at Old Morston, I believe, in Meadows, because the Aberfoyle Diamond is used for the fall fair.
So maybe we can open the cantina.
Maybe.
Working luncheon.
No, I don't think we need to. I think close will be that long. No.
No, can we just reset?
We'll recess and then come back to the close to.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna go into closed session. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that recommendation in the report? Councilor Goyette, Councilor Lewis, all in favor? Yep, that takes us into closed.
Session, can you read the resolution?
Council moves into open session at 2:07 p.m.
Okay, can I get a seconder? Councilor Bailey, Councilor Lewis, all in favor? Moved. Then a resolution to receive.
So that council receives the confidential meeting items as listed and that staff proceed as directed.
That, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Lewis, all in favor? And, we're on to business arising from closed session. Is there any? None? Any notice of motion? None? Any new business? Okay, so confirming hearing bylaw.
That the following bylaw be taken as read as 3 times and finally passed in open council. So it's bylaw 2026-056 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Quisland to this meeting held on the 26th day of August 2026.
Okay, we'll go second. So Bailey, Councilor Hurst. All in favor? And adjourned.
Council hereby adjourns at 2:09.
Lewis, Councilor Hurst, all in favor and adjourned. Thank you.